Meyer backpedaling, running out of time, spinning away, and nobody open. Now he flips it up into traffic and makes a mistake. Trying to force the play, and it's intercepted. BJ Mays rumbling down inside the 10.
This is 365 Sports.
Bowling Green with no timeouts. Nick Singleton. Touchdown, Penn State.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Klubnik, undaunted, unafraid, complete, Turner, touchdown.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Why not?
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Jennings on the play fake, slides it upfield. Matthew Hickner off to the races. Hickner at the 30, full speed, and the big tight end goes 75. It's a Pony Express.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Welcome in. Smokey is off. He is playing golf with Phil Bennett today, and I am amazed that they teed off at 9:45. It's 3:02 right now, Craig, and you or I have not gotten a call from the authorities.
Yeah, I guess that's good news. I wasn't expecting one, but I suppose that you were. So
look, I don't trust that Phil Bennett. Smokey's an impressionable old guy.
I'll let him know next time he's on the show that you don't trust him, Paul.
He's a bad influence, that guy. No, I can't wait to hear the stories when he comes back. I'll just say preparing for the show today was a little bit difficult because Big Ten and ACC Media Days are going on right now as we speak. And I did not account for the Las Vegas of the Big Ten Media Days of it, that they're like 2 hours behind us. And something like, well, they'll be done. And like in my head, the Las Vegas thing just didn't click. So I was like, hey, we're going to hang out with all these kind of Big Ten people today because, by 3 o'clock is going to be 5 o'clock where they are. They're probably and it just didn't click to me. Like, oh no, wait, they're on West Coast time. So they're like in the thick of media days right now. So we have a lot of that stuff coming up later tomorrow and into early next week about all that. But there is lots going on. Sadly, most of it is, at least the first part of it is is kind of off the field stuff, but such is the nature of summertime college football podcasts. And we'll start with this, Craig. 5 for 5 has been for eligibility. 5 years to play 5 years. Rule change. Charlie Baker says the concept is on the back burner as they are focused more on the governance structure, which daily takes different hits and goes in different directions. But he expects it to come up again. And I think the 5 for 5 conversation is one that they really do have to bring up pretty quickly, because the length of eligibility has kind of gotten ridiculous. And if you just had 5 for 5 and then you start that as a basis for whatever future bargaining that you have with the players, then you can kind of grow out of there. But if you keep pushing it off, you're going to keep getting Diego Pavia type lawsuits.
Yeah, man, we really need the season to get here. Yeah. But we are a few weeks away, so Big Ten Media Days rolling on along. And in the meantime, more legislation talk and more what can we do to fix things talk. And, hey, you got to talk these things out to fix them. And yet another issue that we're hearing from on Charlie Baker and the D1 Council and all the people that never made me a fan of college football to begin with, but have now become these obviously very powerful figures that dictate what the game is going to look like. So we are at their mercy in some ways, but be glad when I don't hear Charlie Baker's name for a while, you know? But in terms of the eligibility, I think COVID was a unique situation that created some unique circumstances and some unique college careers as a result. But I think this is a pretty simple slam dunk. If I'm somebody that has any say in this matter at all, we don't need 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th year guys like we've seen all of in the past few years. And again, it was unique. There's guys like a McCormick at Miami who has all these season-ending injuries, and I get that you don't want to just throw them to the wayside by any means, but at some point, like, we've got to still make sure this is college football, right? And so I think nobody, as far as I know, that's like a college football fan that's not wanting this to just be the NFL, which I see quite often now. People that, I guess because they love Ohio State so much, they just want it to be like their NFL team or something. I don't know. But while everything seems to be leaning more towards the NFL in every way, shape, and form, including like they need contracts. I want eligibility to be one of those things that makes college football unique. I don't want to see a 10-year tight end at any school. I don't want to see a guy who's in his 7th year at any school. I know there will be, again, unique circumstances, but this is a way to nip all of that in the bud and just be like, hey, man, it is what it is. You got 5 years, however you want to use that. Soak it all up, play all 5 years, play every single down, and go do what you got to do, boo-boo. But, yeah, this going beyond that, I think, has gotten out of hand, and it's not something that I think's good for the game. It's good for the individual, but not for the game. So, yeah, I'm all for this happening sooner rather than later, but obviously it's now not going to happen anytime soon because they've got so many other things, I guess, that they have to now figure out because they're creating a whole new thing to – for all intents and purposes, replace the NCAA, right? So they've got to start this from the ground up, basically, and you can't do everything. Rome wasn't built in a day. So this will be something hopefully they get to soon because I just think it makes sense and it's just better for the game. Yeah, it does make a lot of sense. And, again, you've got to collective bargaining is eventually going to get here, I think. I mean, it's not going to be a straight line to it like it probably should be. But if you start out with the basis of your collective bargaining being, okay, these are 5-year maximum contracts that you're signing. You have 5 years to play in college athletics, whatever sport it is, but you have 5 years from the day you graduate to then. Red shirts are over. You don't have to worry about all that stuff. You know, the roster limits, those are built in. So this is the basis for that. It's one of those things that makes too much sense not to do, which is why it'll take longer to do than it should. Well, and I'm sure there's a lawyer that has already picked this apart. The usual suspects. There's like 2 or 3 of them on Twitter that always have something to say about what the NCAA is doing wrong or what college sports is doing wrong, and always are ready to put up a fight. And look, they're needed. There needs to be some fights. They don't need to just be able to do whatever they want to do. But it almost gets to the point now where they can't do anything without like a legal situation. I don't know what's possible here, but I'm sure somewhere we'll get some example of a guy who had 3-leg injury. And like, look, I get it. Like, again, there's some unique circumstances, but I just don't think this needs to be pro football where people are making career. Like, you can make career money if you're a really good college football player that's not going to end up making any money in the NFL. And that's why I think players getting paid is great, because there are lives that are going to change and have changed for the better that otherwise never would have, because they never would have been able to make that money. And that's always like the first thing I'll say to anybody who's against that, which I don't know if there's many people at this point, because I don't know how you could be, but yeah, I think this is something that will probably get some pushback from some angle, but I don't know. I feel like the majority of people are like, man, this is college football. Like, you got 5 or college basketball, college softball, whatever. You get 5 years. Is that not enough? Like, I mean, what are we talking about here?
You know, has anybody seen a movie about college from the 80s or 90s where there's like a 30-year-old dude that's still
Van
there?
Wilder.
Van Wilder. I mean, PCU, like the older, like the guys who are in college for 7-8 years, and like they were the joke of the movie. Sometimes they're the hero of the movie, but their journey is, hey, grow the F up. Like, that's the journey of the movie. So particularly for Van Wilder, hey, it's time to, move on with your life and finish this. And then now we have like this perpetual Van Wilderness. And I don't think that. The other thing, I think it's proven out that if you've got a bunch of 7th, 6th, and 7th year players, they're not really helping you that much, because the teams that win and win championships, I mean, they're helping you in regards, but I don't think a lot of them help you win titles, because for the most part, if you've got professional caliber players helping you win titles, they don't need to stay there for 6 years.
I mean, this is not to be like cruel by any means, but it is just to say like, okay, well, you run out of eligibility and what happens? Then you have somebody say, well, no, I should still technically have eligibility. And then there's the waiver. And I think Linda Livingstone was pointing that out of like, then you have people that apply for waivers, and then the waivers gets denied. And then they challenge the waivers because all of the lawyers are circling like sharks, knowing that they can pretty much beat the colleges in any lawsuit imaginable at this point. There's been a couple this summer that haven't worked out over eligibility, but then you have these waivers. So this is an attempt to just eliminate waivers, eliminate like all of this confusion. And that's all I'm for. As like, I'm speaking strictly as a fan. Like, I don't care to see 7th year players at this point. I think we got our fill of that. And I know that's not all that common, but 6 years was very common the last few years. And we all heard, well, COVID's going to roll that over. Well, now there's guys like fighting to stay in college because that's where they're going to make all their money. And I get it. So I'm not trying to, be against individuals who have the right to make money, but I am just a college football fan that doesn't care to see guys overstaying their welcome, because that's, where they know their career is going to be, and it's not going to go any further. So, I guess it doesn't matter right now because they're not going forward with it. So in the meantime, let the waivers fly left and right and get challenged left and right, and let guys keep getting their bonus years. JUCO doesn't matter anymore. So, I guess we'll see what happens. But, it doesn't matter now because they're not doing anything about it for the meantime.
Yeah, I think that – and I think, I asked John Gallagher about it, about the 6-year guys when we had him on. And he said, we got to get them out because, again, they're also, like, raising the market a lot too, because now you've got to pay this guy as a 6th-year power forward, maybe a little bit more where you could – it's too complicated for everybody to deal with, and I think they just need to find a way to simplify everything. But again, that probably only ends with collective bargaining. Next up, also from Charlie Baker, any expansion of the NCAA tournaments for this season is growing more unlikely per comments from executives, including Charlie Baker, who appeared in D.C. on Thursday. Logistics are likely to push expansion, if adopted, to 26-27, which, look, I hope the logistics push it until at least the day that I die. Like, if they do it after I'm dead, it won't bother me as much. But there's no one who's in favor of it. And figuring out the logistics when you've already got the schedule, you've already, made the TV deal with CBS, Warner, all whatever, and then pushing it out. And then one of the logistics should be, we've got to sell this to the populace that this is a good thing, which so far I'm sure they're finding no one wants.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some people that want it. I think it's like the college football playoff. You don't hear coaches really trying to bark down lesser teams, do you? No, they're like, no, let's have more teams. Why? Because I can have an easier time getting to the NCAA tournament, and hey, that keeps my job for longer, and this and that. I don't know really how wide-ranging the basketball opinions are, but I doubt there's too many coaches that want less opportunity. So it's not all one-sided, but from a fan point of view, I think it's mixed. I've seen some people that feel the more the merrier. It's no different than the football playoff. There's Mike Leach talked about 16. He talked all the way up to 64 by the end of it. And I think if you look deeper into the basketball discussions online, there's probably all sorts of wide-ranging, like, yeah, let's just everybody makes it somehow. There's some configuration where everybody gets in, and then you play this play into the play-in game, and or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I'm not super passionate about the basketball side of things to where like, oh my God, if they touch this, then that's like the end of the world to me. I'm fine with what it is. I don't need it to be more. I don't care for it to be more. I don't want more. And I'm just glad with what it is. And I feel like it's one of those things that they've kind of tinkered with, obviously, because they've added play-in games over the years, and that hasn't made too much of a difference. It definitely hasn't raised interest, in my opinion, for those first few games. I think they're just kind of there, unless you're a fan of those teams, you're a gambler. But that's also what they're kind of feeding is this gambling and things like whatever can make money. More teams makes money. So, yeah, I guess we'll revisit this as well, much like the eligibility issue. But unlike the eligibility issue, this one I'm glad to see not taking hold right away. And sounds like they need to discuss this a bit further, but it also sounds like they're not pushing away from it at all. I mean, he still said in the same talk that he wants 72 or 76 teams. So he's not just expanding a little bit. I mean, we're going like maybe double digits more than already. So all these bubble teams wouldn't even be bubble teams. And now there'd be a new level of bubble that's a total step below what it has been. And that's when I feel you're just watering it down. But that's just my opinion. I know the hoops heads might disagree on that. I say, why mess with perfection? Tweak it. But I think you start to maybe go a little bit overboard. Maybe wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, look, if they took away the first 4 games, I wouldn't be mad about it either. Just start.
I wouldn't at all.
Yeah,
I mean,
just start on Thursday like you always did.
I mean, it's all a money grab, really.
Yeah.
They'll paint it as it's opportunity or paint it the way they need to make it not sound like it's just a money grab when we know it is. We know all of these actions are money grabs or legal maneuvers. And so, yeah, this is no different. And I'm assuming that maybe what happened was CBS is like, we're not giving you more money, so you're not getting your extra games.
Yeah.
If like the simplest thing to me is probably that's what happened. So yeah, we'll revisit it in a couple of years and see if they're more warmed up to the idea, or we'll revisit it next year and see if they're more warmed up to it. But yeah, they've been talking for a while, and all this says to me is that they didn't get what they wanted in return for these extra games.
Yeah, absolutely. Garrett, there's no slide for this, but this just came down. President Trump has signed an executive order, the Saving College Sports, whatever it's called. And look, I'm not going to go into my long spiel about how executive orders are garbage and they all kind of get tied up and they're not really worth the paper they're printed on. But it is a lot of the things in broad strokes that Cody Campbell was talking about. But the one that jumps out at me is the order prohibits third-party pay-for-play payments to college athletes. This does not apply to legitimate fair market value compensation that the third party provides to an athlete, such as for a brand endorsement, which is it basically takes a lot of the things in the House settlement and tries to codify them and then puts things on the National Labor Relations Board. It says that they're clarify the status in order to preserve non-revenue sports. So like there's a lot of complex stuff to this. It's really boring. And we've got Amanda Christovich coming on later and we'll ask her about it, but that has been signed. None of this is really outside of what you would think, but there are, things that are going to get fought. The point is, which I do agree with, which is rare for anything coming out of this White House. I think most people who watch the show know that, but the lack of
make it very clear, Paul. Like you don't leave any doubt, man.
Yeah. So the lack of enforceable rules has turned what was supposed to be legitimate third-party NIL opportunities into pay-for-play bidding wars amongst university boosters. And so they want to eliminate that and get it all out of there. But they're also, and I read the entire executive order, at least the first draft of it that Ross Dellinger had last week. The problem in this is that a lot of this falls on the Department of Education, which they are trying to eliminate. So I don't really know how, like, you can get something in from a department and then eliminate said department. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is going to have to be done by Congress, because the way our Constitution works is that all these things have to be done by Congress and codified by Congress, because otherwise this is just a paper and they can just put it on the desk and, like, you know, the White House can call and say, hey, you know, are you working on that executive order? Like, yeah. No, we got a commission and a committee and the commission for the committee and so on and so on. As where it's Congress, if it's codified into law, you really have to go. I mean, I know that there's bureaucracy and all, but you really have to start enforcing those things, because that's when you start getting in trouble. So until Congress settles on what it's going to be, whether it's the SCORE Act or anything else, this is just kind of another missive out there in the wilderness. But it does come from a big spot in the President of the United States.
Cool. What about the Epstein files? No, I'm just kidding.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know really what to even say about this thing, because I feel like we've just kind of walked or tap danced around this story, and I don't know what to make of it. Like, I don't know if it matters or if it doesn't. And so I'm not politically educated enough to know and go on to talk about it the way you have about executive orders and all those types of things. I think you'll find, if you've watched this show long enough, like, legalese and political things are not really my forte. So I'll leave it up to you to kind of diagnose and interpret and translate what all this means. Sounds like it's nothing that just, like, changes the world overnight, but I guess it's potentially a positive step forward for those who are hoping that President Trump will intervene and solve some of their problems. But yet I know you're saying that this could just be a for show type of thing that doesn't ultimately change. So I don't know. As somebody who doesn't really understand the inner workings, I don't know. I guess we'll see where this takes us.
Yeah. I mean, and this is not just true for anything. This is true of the executive orders. They're usually just temporary things, because they're not designed, like, we're not the machine that we have, the governmental machine set forth by the founding fathers, is not set up to run on executive orders. It's set up to run on, you know, checks and balances and all these other things. And right now we're in kind of a weird spot with that. But, you know, the title of the executive order is President Donald J. Trump Saves College Sports. And while there are things in there that Cody Campbell has talked about and other people have, reading what they have and the mechanisms for it don't really make a lot of sense to me outside of getting something passed. And that's where it runs into, because, you know, and the reason Congress has to do this is because one day we're going to have another president. And if that president doesn't agree that this one saved college sports, all he has to do is write an executive order canceling it back. In fact, President Trump has done that with a lot of Biden executive orders, because executive orders, again, are not really all that binding. All it takes is a change in the guy who's signing them, and then they're gone. So nobody should get really that excited about this, because the minute, you know, which it's going to be 3 years from now, we're going to have another president. And if it's not somebody who agrees with him, then they're just going to pull back all the stuff that he signed, and then either put it to Congress or do their own thing. So it's just, that's why they're not really a thing. Usually they're for naming a national park or a naval ship or something like that, to where nobody's going to be like, you know what, I'm going to pull back that national park, or I'm going to rename the naval ship. It just kind of stays there forever. You know, we named a ship after Ronald Reagan. Okay, there we go. Nobody's going to take that back, but here we are. So that's my little government lesson for the day, for those of you who didn't do well in that class. So moving on. Before I get too deep in the weeds, the Big Ten still looking at private equity. This is from Amanda Christovich at Front Office Sports. Will be with us at 4:30. They're still into the private equity discussions, which, you know, one of the things I think, Craig, it's funny, we see these things coming back around. When all these discussions first started popping up a year and a half or so ago, you know, everybody kind of thought, well, it'll be the conferences that want to, you know, rise up to the level of the SEC and Big Ten that really do it. And the SEC and Big Ten don't really need to do it. No, if there's money out there, the big corporations are going to go find it. And that's, clearly they're interested, but we'll see to what level.
Yeah, I mean, the Big 12 should go get private equity to catch up to the SEC and the Big 10, and then they leave out the part where, so what prevents the SEC and Big 10 from doing the exact same thing?
Yeah.
So, okay, yeah, you catch up until they go, well, we'll just do that too, and then you're right back where you were, and you might even be further behind because they get even more from private equity because they're bigger brands. So, yeah, that whole conversation has never made much sense to me about catching up. I don't know what lever you can pull unless there's a magic donation that they can't match. But like this, well, we'll do stadium naming rights. Well, then they will too. We'll do jersey patches. Well, then they will too. We'll do this. They will too. I mean, so I don't know that you're catching up by like any way like this, but it is notable that there could be a lot more money pumped into leagues that already have a lot of it or leagues that don't and do need more of it. And it could be a thing where it does separate you in that private equity would be willing to give the Big 12 more than they would be willing to give, let's say, the Pac-12 or the Pac. And so maybe that's a way you separate yourself further. But I would stand to think that would mean then the Big 10 is going to get way more than the Big 12 is going to get. So, again, that only increases their gap potentially. But the private equity thing, every time it gets brought up, I see people who seem to like private equity that cheer it. And then I see a bunch of people who've dealt with it that hate it and will say that it's the death of a lot of things that we've loved over the years. And I know in seeing myself business get taken over, it does feel like they just hollow it out and they keep like the shell to make it look like what it was. And then all the insides are torn out and emptied, and it's just an empty shell of what it was. But hey, it's still good old, you know what? Just keep.
Hey, think of all the restaurants that we've lost or have changed from our youth that everybody used to love to go to. And then you're like, man, what's the difference with this chicken? Well, it's cheaper chicken.
Yeah.
It's, hey, we're going to, instead of these ingredients that we use, well, we can buy this. We can buy this from Estonia that just the same, and then they do all those things and it's moved around here and here in different portfolios and different shell companies and all that until you're like, oh, crap, there's no Bennigan's.
Yeah, it just sounds to me like, and I know it's not the exact same comparison. Yeah. Again, this is another thing. Like, look, folks, let me just be honest with you for a second, and I always am, so I don't really need to even say that, but I just like college football.
Yeah.
I didn't get in for politics. I didn't get into it for private equity discussion, but I know that's here where we are. I'm trying to learn as best I can, even though I don't really want to. So this is not in my wheelhouse either, financial private equity discussions. And when I see it's usually skewed negative by people who have experienced it personally, not just by people randomly popping off on Twitter. So I know that there's this desire for money, and that's why this is tempting. But my base level knowledge of it, the warning signs go off of like, this is a slippery slope. This is not a good idea, is the feeling that I get. And so they're going to continue to look into it like everybody else seemingly has at this point. And it seems inevitable that at some time or another, we're going to see the crossover actually occur and maybe in full across all of the leagues. But I do think it's a slippery enough slope that people are cautiously approaching it. And that's why you're seeing a lot of stories over the last couple of years about, well, there's talks, there's discussions, but nothing really substantial has happened just yet, because I think everybody knows, like, are we sure this is you got to be sure if you go this route. And so we've heard plenty of feedback from our listeners who have dealt with it that say this is a bad idea. They're just going to carve it up and burn it down and what have you. I don't know if that would be as true for some of the bigger schools, because like, who's going to come in and ruin Ohio State football, right? Like, but could it ruin Iowa State football? Yeah, I think there's a chance that it could if it wasn't done properly. So, yeah, that's something that's interesting to me, and I just don't know enough to feel confident in saying like there's no way this could ever work. But I've heard enough to have my doubts.
Yeah, absolutely. One more from Tony Petiti. This is Chris Vanini responding to that Tony Petiti said he wanted conference championship weekend to still matter, and that we are, Craig, you've said this a lot, we're kind of dismissing conference champions. And if we go to 16, they're going to matter even less, especially if we do the Big Ten's format.
We got a bunch of people tell us conference championship games don't matter because of the playoff, when all they're saying is it doesn't matter because of a seeding, when I think the conference title still matters a great deal.
Yeah.
It still matters to win the SEC, not to be the regular season champion when you didn't play 7 of the teams in your own damn league. So they say it to say that conference championships are watered down now anyways. It's like, no, I think they're as important as ever. You just don't have the full complete picture. And in a lot of leagues, you never have. We didn't have everybody playing round robin all the time anyways, but now you're just trying to dismiss it as it means absolutely nothing, all for the sake of the playoff and for the sake of for like the 6th team in the league to have a crack at the playoff. And that's where you lose me on these play-in games. I get the excitement level that it would bring, but you're totally diminishing something that's been a core part for the last 30 years while saying you're doing this to preserve the regular season. And that doesn't make sense to me.
No, it doesn't. And look, in pointing out, talking out both sides of his mouth, Vanini says they literally just changed the CFP in a seeding format that would have given buys to both Big Ten title game participants last year, devaluing that conference championship.
It's not the Big Ten title game then.
Yeah, because they both would have gotten buys. Like they would have played it. One of them would have had a banner and a ring, but they would have wound up in the same exact spot as the other one. Like there would have been there was no stakes on that. But yes, and he said, I agree. I just don't want to devaluate, but they just did it. I mean, like, yeah, I don't want to devalue them either, but you have to have it one way or the other. You have to say these conferences are too big to have a title game mean the same thing it did before because of what we've done, or it means something and we're going to make it mean something.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess it's just it's another money chase or just a territory grab. Well, this is the way that we can get the most amount of teams in is what it is. And this is the way that we can get extra money because now CBS or ESPN or Fox has to pay us for these bonus games we've now added to the schedule because now we've got our 2 play-in games. And so that's all that is. I don't think it's anything for the betterment of the sport. I think it can create more excitement potentially, but I think a lot of reaction acts as though last year's conference championship games didn't have excitement, and that's just total BS and revisionist history. Yeah. I mean, so what if both teams are already going to the playoff in some cases? Like, that's fine. It doesn't have to be all or nothing all the time for every single thing that we do.
You know what happened? Because Texas didn't win it, they had to play in the first round. That's
I mean, so what?
But I mean that's stakes. I mean that's something, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. So there were stakes on it.
There's stakes on it, and they get a home game, and that's awesome. But if you here Oregon and Penn State just would have been in the quarters, just like right there.
Yeah, I don't like look, the conference championship game is not the most precious thing in the world. It's not like it's been around since the 1900s. It's not like the Ivies when they were claiming national titles, having played 2 games a year, were playing conference title games. The SEC created it, and they created it like 30-something years ago, and it took hold everywhere else because of money, and just it made sense, and it was a cool promotional thing, and it's been a thing that's been valuable to college football, but I'm not like Mr. Krabby of like, you can't change, like this game can't ever be played on another day, or the Rose Bowl can't ever move times. And like, look, some of that's just tradition. I understand why people want to preserve it, but I'm not like to the point where, well, Army Navy has to be by its, like, I'm open to ideas if they make sense. And if it's for the betterment of everybody, like Army Navy, you're all alone and that's great, but we kind of need that weekend for everybody else, so we're not playing into February, kind of a thing. So that I'm all for, but this to me just I hear certain arguments about it, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds like it would be cool, but again, I just always get back to, man, by the end of it, and you explaining it all, while it makes sense, it just seems very convoluted and very gimmicky. Yeah, just super gimmicky and just very like the NBA trying to just do anything to make the All-Star game matter or what, and so I know that's not quite what this is, but it's what it's starting to feel like when you go, well, now these 4 get buys and they don't play in the conference title game, but these 4 seeds do, and then that winner gets to the playoff, and I can see where it would be cool, but until I see it, I have my doubts that that's maybe the best thing for the game. It's an interesting conversation because there have been potentially exciting ideas proposed, but yeah, I'm not all on board with this play-in stuff, and it's just very like the regular wrestling match is not enough. Let's give them tables and ladders and chairs and kind of make it more exciting. Well, that's exciting when you do it every once in a while. Now when it's like the constant kind of a thing, and I feel like we're just doing constant gimmicks now to try to be creative and make money, and I don't necessarily enjoy that.
And the thing is that when you're talking about the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th teams like having this shot, in these playing games, like I was trying to explain the other day with Eli Drinkwitz and his thing of like have everybody play a playing game. That's the only one that I would even remotely enjoy, because then there's a chance like the NCAA tournament that, the big dogs get upset.
Right.
But if you're just telling me that like, hey, these teams that wouldn't make it under any other scenario other than that we have wedged this, like we've just shoved this in your face of, hey, guess what? Here, like if it's the ACC doing it, here's Syracuse and NC State, who both had one good win this year and wound up 8-4, but lost to all the good teams in the league. We're going to like, one of them's going to get in. And you're like, why?
Yeah, no, if they did it to where like Georgia was the 1 seed in the SEC and they had to play the 4 and the winner goes and the loser doesn't, that's something. That's cool. That's cool as hell. Like I'm down for that because there are real stakes. But if you're telling me, well, Georgia's already in and Texas is already in, so now Florida's going to play Auburn to see who gets in here, and then I mean I can see where there's some fun in that. But when you're already protecting like 2 of your teams and they're not even playing, even though they were the best 2 teams for the quote unquote conference titles, so that's all the wayside, and now it's just a play-in tournament for runners up. Yeah, that sounds like garbage to me. Yeah. That sounds like gimmicky garbage to try to force feed as many teams as you can into a league and try to make the TV networks give you more money. So yeah, if you want to do 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3, like the 2 that make it to the final, they get in. And that's where it gets complicated, because then you're like, well, there's going to be 3 and 4 that make it from some leagues, and that's why I guess you go ahead and account for. Well, that's why we got to give the first 2 their automatics. And then we have the ones that are sort of, but then that's when I'm like, okay, now we're getting silly with it.
Which is why the only idea that would make sense is Eli Drinkwitz of everybody who's in the top whatever of how many playoff we have. It's like if it's a 12-team playoff, then who's ever the top 24, there you go.
Yeah.
Like that's what you do, and you start that way.
But then you start protecting these teams to the point it's like, so Georgia could like not play in a conference title game. And I know some of the ideas have like a conference title game still, and those 2 teams are just already in, but it's like, so we're doing that. But you start to get to a point where like you have teams who already have far better, the godly recruiting rankings that are always perfect, but you have all these teams that already get the best talent, and they already have like the best of this and that. And now you're having to play like 2 less games potentially than other teams who already have way less and are having to like scratch and claw. And now they're having to play 2 more games, maybe 3, like, I don't know, depending on the setup. And so, yeah, that sounds like a great idea if you're the big schools who already have every advantage known to man. Guess how we can rig this even further in our advantage and totally ensure that nobody ever slips through to our little country club.
It's college football gerrymandering.
It's very much, that's what it is. Yeah, that's what it
like,
is.
Yeah, let's redraw this map so that like, hey, and then what you say is this is a better map. We're giving everybody an opportunity here. There's more opportunity in this. You're like, is there, or do I just have to, am I playing a carnival game that I'm eventually getting scammed at?
Yeah, I'm open to some ideas, but I'm not all the way in it all yet. I think I'm fine with where we are for the time being. Yeah. I know it won't last long, but I'm fine. I don't want play-in games at this point in time, but I'm open to continuing to be open-minded to all that.
Yeah. Well, and we'll wrap it up with this before the next segment. We're going to talk about the toughest and easiest schedules, according to Pete Nakos, although he did leave. There's a notable omission
egregious
there.
Omission, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's an egregious omission we'll get to in the easiest schedules, but did want to talk about it. Dan Lanning, he is in favor of changing the schedule to move week 0 to be week 1. And week 0 is still the dumbest name for anything ever. Shift up the season and the postseason earlier and eliminate all month-long playoff buys. Amen to that. Play these games faster and sooner. College football belongs on Saturday, not the NFL. Yes, Dan. Yes. Welcome aboard.
I mean, he's not nearly even close to like the first 100 people to have said this same thing and proposed this. He's just, I think, another guy who agrees with it. And I mean, all these first 30 minutes have told me is how much of a mess this entire sport is. That you're looking at like every single thing and try to reanalyze and figure it out. And it's just like, man, this is a very evolving thing. And I get there's a lot of changes that they're having to account for, all of their own doing, mind you. This is like decades worth of rigging the system in your favor and no longer being allowed to. The floodgates have burst, and now you're having to have your head on a swivel for everything that exists basically at this point in time. And so everything's up for debate, but I don't have a lot of love for the week 0 title. I just think it's kind of goofy and always has been. It just should be week 1. It's the first weekend, whatever that weekend is. That's the first weekend. I know why there's reason for week 0, but yeah, I'm with him on this. I do know, as much as we all love college football, that by the end of that playoff, there were people that were very much just kind of like, all right, the season needs to end. Like, it's been going on and on and on. And I'm all for more football, but you could feel like it went so long last year with that 12-teamer that, it's not a bad idea to kind of compartmentalize this a bit more and make it make a bit more sense, and not, try to go toe-to-toe with the NFL and lose your real estate on Saturdays. So I'm all for preserving your best day as best as you possibly can, and moving it up and not having us talking into February about the national champion being crowned.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's move it up. And nothing has bothered me more. Like, even when it was just bowl games, I got like January 1st was a great day, but when the last game, especially back in the days where you didn't have a conference title game in some leagues, where, the ACC didn't have one for the longest time. FSU, like when I was in school, FSU would play Florida. They'd be the ACC champs, and then you wait 5.5 weeks to watch them play again. It was just weird to me, and I hated it.
Yeah, January 1st is cool. They played the championship on January 20th last year.
Yeah.
So, January 1st, cool day for everything. Well, guess what? You still got 3 weeks left in the season, and that just doesn't feel like it's all that that's smart in the long run.
Yeah, and they just took the gap and moved it back as opposed to tightening up.
Right.
Yeah, it's just dumb. When we come back, the toughest and easiest schedules according to Pete Nakos. This is 365 Sports.
Now at Bird Collision Ford, we're bringing you an offer that's as big as America. Employee pricing for everyone. You pay what they pay. That means you drive home a new Ford F-150, Bronco Sport, Expedition, Super Duty. From America, for America. Employee pricing for everyone at BK Ford. Looking to sell your vehicle? Get top dollar for yours today. Don't miss out. Employee pricing is available for a limited time. Visit us anytime at bkford.com. Experience better at BK Ford.
I'll never get used to this. I'll never get used to this. This is how I wanna live. Forever we'll be singing like, oh, I'll never get used to this. I'll never get used to this. I'll never get used to this. This is how I wanna live. Forever we'll be singing like, oh, I'll never get used to this.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak. And we saw this the other day from Pete Nakos. And Garrett, we're going to start with the toughest, all right? the toughest non-conference schedules. Baylor is I don't know if these are, if you put these in order, there's no numbers by them, or if it's just the 10 and you kind of make up your mind on your own. Baylor, Miami, TCU, Duke, Clemson, Syracuse, Kent State, who is on, like, they play FSU. I think they play Bama. I think their 4 non-con games or whatever they play are all pretty tough. Ohio, Tulane, Florida, and Florida State are the toughest non-conference schedules. Baylor, of course, has Auburn and SMU on their schedule. Miami, they have Notre Dame. They have
Florida, USF.
Yeah, Florida, yeah. Florida and USF, who I think will be very tough for anybody. So, yeah, that's a tough one. TCU has North Carolina on the schedule right off the bat. So, yeah, these are Clemson and LSU play each other right off the bat. Garrett, I noticed you didn't put Brian Kelly's
I
trash
forgot
talk.
about that one.
You forgot?
You forgot about that one.
It's convenient that you forgot about that.
Yeah, we'll leave that alone.
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, Florida obviously has FSU. They have Miami. So these are the toughest one. Craig, any thoughts on any of these?
I mean, it's interesting to see Baylor at the top, but not surprising because of the fact that they do get Auburn right out of the gates and then SMU. I don't know that would make them the toughest, though. I feel like you could argue that some others might be tougher. I mean, but it's 2 name brands, and one of those was a playoff team. So I definitely think it's one of the toughest. Miami, you mentioned the teams, or I mentioned the teams they played, definitely have compared to some a very tough schedule. And I don't know everybody's memorized everybody's schedules. So I know we've gone over a lot of these and come across a lot of these teams, but I don't remember everyone to be able to just riff on the order or what have you here. But, yeah, I mean, a lot of these we've talked about. I remember Syracuse and Clemson, a lot of ACC on here, couple Big 12, and the one SEC team, for as much as we hear about, the schedules, the non-conference is not what we hear about. And there are cases like Oklahoma and Texas where they're playing, this big banger of a game. But Florida, in a year where they really need to win games, not nice timing, I should say, for Billy Napier, and interesting to see just only them on this list from that league. But I know a lot of the talk is not about the non-con, it's about the league schedule. So therefore you don't have to, or shouldn't have to, or maybe won't play tough non-cons in the future, is because the league. And if Kurt Cignetti has his way up in the Big Ten, they'll never play anybody that even has a pulse come game day.
Yeah.
The new Art Briles, as far as scheduling goes, to be clear. So, yeah, I don't like that Cignetti's kind of like lapping up the fact of, we're doing the SEC thing now. We're playing, nobody in the non-con. I know he's just riling up people. He's just trolling people, and that's kind of his MO. But I hate that he's like leaning into, we're not going to play anybody and acting as though he's the head coach at Ohio State. I hope that non-cons don't just get thrown to the wayside, but there's a lot of questions about those, like every other element of this entire sport. There are also questions about non-con moving forward. So good to see teams scheduling tough teams. I think it'll make some of these teams better for having been tested. And Baylor, Miami, TCU, all these teams, kudos to them for scheduling tough teams. Although you can't predict that out, but you schedule names, more often than not, you're going to probably run into some pretty good teams.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, Florida, I mean, they have one, like LIU is their first game, but they have USF and Miami and FSU on their schedule. Miami of Notre Dame, USF and Florida among teams on there.
This can't be in order because I think those are tougher on paper than.
I strangely enough, Baylor and TCU are both on this list, and they both have SMU, but SMU also has them. So that's kind of where I guess maybe Pete doesn't think of Baylor and TCU in the same stratosphere as SMU right now.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, but
I think that's a total. I will give him the benefit of the doubt and think that maybe he just had another omission like on the other list.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't make much sense that you wouldn't then have you or who was it? SMU.
Yeah, SMU.
You think, you're playing Baylor and TCU, then that should be on the list. Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's that.
But then again, I don't know how that's viewed up there in Nashville. That might be like not as big of a deal, like you said, although it should be. And so maybe that's just an oversight.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Clemson's on the list because they have LSU and South Carolina. Now, they do sneak in Troy and Furman. Furman plays the week before South Carolina. But still, if you open your season with an SEC team that's going to be really good and close it really good, I'll allow them for the SEC mimicry on the Furman Paladins there in the week before. Now, let's go to –
Hold on. I do think that in the case of Napier and Aranda, that these non-cons could have them in boiling hot water amongst their fan bases early on, only to maybe save the day, like Baylor last year. Really bad start to the season. And then by the end of it, they had put lipstick on that early season slate that it looked like it was going to be a pig of a season. But by the end of it, they had turned it into something not too bad. And had they beaten LSU in that bowl game, I think it would have been an incredible year, an incredible turnaround. It was a very good one and enough to give you hope about this year. But, I can see a scenario like last year where you're in that first month and you're under 500 for a second and people are like, oh, my God. And then it's like, well, you just played a really tough non-con and you dig yourself out of that hole. But if you don't do that and you actually start off well, then I think you've got the type of schedule and some others do on here where that could propel you into the top 25 pretty quickly if you handle your business.
Yeah. Just a word on Kent State really quick. So their three, I said Alabama, I was wrong. It was Oklahoma. They play at Tech, at FSU, and at OU.
That's number one.
Yeah,
it has to be.
Yeah. And they also had to fire their coach in the spring, if you remember, because there was a bit of a financial scandal there. So they're already going in maybe behind a lot of people and have to deal with going to Lubbock, Tallahassee, and Norman. Three places not easy to play in. Syracuse, by the way, made the list. They play Tennessee early, and then late they've got to have somebody, and Notre Dame later in the year. So they're on the ACC Notre Dame rotation there.
Kent State, who's won one football game in the last 2 years, has the hardest non-con schedule in the entire country. So this is definitely not ranked in order.
But congratulations on your financial windfall.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
So gonna make up for all the money the coach scammed out of you, I guess. All right, let's go to the other list, Garrett. The easiest. Now, the one that's not on here, remarkably, is Indiana. Who's made a big stink about, they're not even ashamed of it.
They're like bragging about it.
Hey, look, we're going to roll right through this. Now, Tech is on this list, and Tech usually, they've played Oregon the last couple of years. They usually have someone, but this is one of the reasons I think people think that Tech can finally maybe not stumble along the way out of the gate, because they can roll through the non-con early and build that confidence as they get into what is going to be a tough conference schedule in the Big 12.
Yeah, that's what I've cited as well, is they don't have the toughest road. And when you've poured in all this money and you've got a favorable schedule, that's even more reason to believe that this year could be the year to break through and handle your business, because Oregon State's a little bit of a question mark, but I don't think it's much of a question mark. And you don't go to play them way out northwest. You get them at home. So you don't leave your brand new sparkling, reorganized, reconstructed, rebuilt stadium at all at the beginning of the year. And you should just pile up wins. And I don't know if they'll start top 25. I think they might start top 25 based on just the amount of hype. And let's face it, voters know a certain amount, and then they kind of default to what they've kind of heard maybe, overall. And so who have you heard more about this offseason? So I think they'll get a lot of probably preseason votes. And even if they don't, then they should be undoubtedly off to a really nice start with the schedule that they have. And again, Oregon State, respect to them, but I just don't know what they're like after 2 years of basically being in the dishwasher, of just being, thrown around and trying to just get a breath of air, not really sure what the future holds. So maybe the Beavers challenge them, but Arkansas Pine Bluff, absolutely not. Kent State, we just talked about them. They've won 1 game in 2 years. Toughest schedule in the country. That's a blowout. And then Oregon State. So yeah, they're definitely going to be 2-0 and good chance they're 3-0. And yeah, they're not going to probably have to break much of a sweat.
Okay, Auburn's on this list, but maybe that doesn't account. I don't know if that's fair to Auburn, seeing as Baylor is their first game. And again, I don't want to be biased. I mean, yes, Ball State, South Alabama, and Mercer are also on their list. So they don't have a second one to balance that out. We're going to do Ole Miss's schedule later today. And that will be that we'll get into that one. But yeah, that's another one I know. I would give Auburn the benefit of the doubt because at least of all these teams that are on this list, they have, and even Georgia has Georgia Tech. So you may want to like move them aside because they at least have one and the rest of them have none and put Indiana in one of those spots.
Well, I got Pete's article pulled up. I should have had it up earlier, but yeah, I mean, he gives credit to Baylor being a test, but then Ball State, South Alabama, and Mercer.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, so yeah, like they play a tough road game, but you know, that's where we get off track and we start talking about scheduling discussion. It's like, yeah, the league you play in is really tough, even though that varies based on the fact that you don't play everybody, but everybody claims and acts like they play everybody. Everybody acts like they play Georgia, Texas, LSU, so on and so forth. And some of them do, some of them don't. Some of them play some combination. But then you have, I mean, that's 3 easy wins right there. That gets you halfway to bowl eligibility. And that's where the complaints and the discussion happens around the SEC scheduling. But yeah, I mean, going to Baylor is a challenge. But I guess for Pete, not enough of one to take away from the 3 games that are obviously should be layups for Hugh Freeze and company.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I've pulled up as many as I can here. Wake Forest, Kennesaw State, Western Carolina, Oregon State, and Delaware. Georgia's. Look, Georgia didn't have a tough schedule last year, but Marshall, Austin P, Charlotte, and Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech will be their toughest one, and that obviously comes at the end of the season. So,
I mean, I'll give credit to, Auburn's playing a Baylor for what I just said. It's just that you've got 3 games typically on these schedules and everybody else has maybe 2. And some of them have 3. But for bowl purposes, which then turns into you putting out your big graphic at the end of the year, where then you start putting out your propaganda of 12 teams made bowl games. And it's like, if you didn't have that 3rd layup, but it's not like all 4 are layups because Auburn does play Baylor, Georgia does play Georgia Tech, Tennessee plays Syracuse. So you do have to give them credit for games like that. Now, on Ole Miss, I'm trying to think, Georgia State, Washington State. I mean, you couldn't have really predicted that. Tulane. So, I'll give them some credit for that, and the Citadel. So that's not terrible. So, yeah, I don't see a totally egregious one just yet, but we haven't been through every single team.
Yeah, we're doing Ole Miss's schedule later on in the day, but Tennessee has Syracuse. Their others are East Tennessee and UAB and New Mexico State. Vanderbilt.
Penn State should be at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Penn State should be at the top of the list. I mean, they've got Nevada, FIU, and Villanova. So I don't think that's something you look at as all that challenging. And I think Villanova is still probably for some people one of those schools, if you don't know anybody, you're like, they have a football team? Like, and I know that they clearly do, and most people do, but I just always automatically think of basketball with them. But that's got to be one of the easier non-cons in the entire country, I would think, would be Penn State. So again, definitely not in order, but a nice glimpse into kind of where heads are at with this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, Penn State. The other thing you factor in, and I got choked up there, I got a hiccup, is one of the difficult factors of a lot of people's non-cons is that you sign this home and home, and you've got like Texas not only has to play Ohio State, they've got to go to Columbus to do it, right? If you're playing the same team every year, like Georgia and Georgia Tech, Georgia has to go to Georgia Tech and play in their stadium, although, that game's a little bit more divided, but it's still not their home field. And so you have all that. But if you're Penn State and you have Nevada, FIU, and Villanova just showing up at your place, there's a degree of difficulty that's not there for you that is for other teams.
Yeah, and the one that he's missing on here is Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
I think he acknowledged that and said that it's actually within the story if you go and look. But Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, again.
Well,
Kent State is what I'm thinking of.
Kennesaw State is the newest FBS program.
But, Indiana, Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, and Indiana State. Garbage non-conference schedule. And I would think if you're ranking these, this probably has to be number one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I saw a lot of Indiana fans get defensive in the comments, and it's like, what are you defending, though? Like, what is your argument that it's not an easy non-conference schedule? But they won a little bit, and now I think I've seen, just like every fan base does, they turn into the
this has been this way for 20 years.
Yeah, you're scared of Signet, they got some catchphrase of like, you fear the Siggy or something like that.
I saw it here.
Oh yeah,
I saw it here. That for the year they got snubbed from the playoff, and they did get snubbed from the playoff. I saw a lot of signs like, we want Bama, we want FSU, we want Oregon, and I'm like, you guys are really good, but I'm not sure that you're there yet. Now that team the next year that had some injuries and wouldn't have, that team could have hung.
I think that's fans doing that. Fans don't make the schedules.
Yeah, I know, but they're like saying all this like we want like in the playoff, and to your point about like all of a sudden you're kind of new money when it comes to fans, and you're like, all right, this is your first year doing this. I know you want to see them because you may not get another chance again, but yeah, you pump the brakes.
It's just that I think acting like you're already in the club because you've had like a year of success, and now you're acting as though you've had 10 years of success is what I'm getting at. And so you're seeing that, and you see that from Epic. It's not anything unique. It happens. Just insert a team over the years. This is just how it always goes. When you start to win, you start to get that confidence, and inevitably some part of the fan base gets cocky, and then next thing you know, you're claiming that people only talk about you negatively because they want engagement, and that's just delusion or trolling. I don't know which one, because there's no excusing the argument that Indiana has one of, if not the easiest non-conference schedule in the country. It's on paper. We'll see, but I do think this is something that maybe aids them initially, like it clearly did last year to some degree. Now, they still had to go handle their business in the Big Ten. That's ultimately what matters. And if they do that consistently, that'll be great. And if the playoff expands, and everybody's going to start scheduling like them, which is a concern. But I do think that if things say sort of status quo, which is probably not going to happen, but you would get to a point where if Indiana's knocking that door again this year, then that non-con has to come into consideration. And you have to go, they're rigging the system, by not challenging themselves, or that's going to have to be held against them to some point, potentially if you're going up against a team for the same spot that's got at least somebody with a pulse on the schedule type of a argument. So I remember how that was with Baylor. They don't deserve it. They didn't play anybody, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually they started scheduling better teams. It reminds me almost deja vu of Indiana with Signetti and what they're trying to do. And it makes sense. Like it helped them out and in making the playoff last year, and it could help them again this year. So we'll see.
Now, their schedule is a little bit different because they do like the Big Ten schedules are on like the every other year thing. So last year where they avoided Oregon and they avoided Penn State, they play them this year. The only big dog they had last year was Ohio State. So,
but Indiana's got nobody like for the foreseeable future. That's the thing about them is and when I get to like eventually that's going unless everybody just says, all right, we're doing the same pattern because it's worked for them. Like at some point that's going to have to be held against you that you are just intentionally not trying to do anything but go 3-0 in the non-conference, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah, no, they are. I mean, like I'm looking at
they have no Power 5 or Power 4 teams in the next 5 years.
Look, they've got long-term deals with Kennesaw State and Indiana State.
I bet they do.
Long-term, like that's.
I bet they do.
That's going to be a regular check for them to cash, for them to come in. Austin P, Eastern Michigan, in 28. like just looking down.
Here's everybody on their schedule for the next 5 years. Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, Indiana State, Colorado State, Western Kentucky, Kennesaw State, Indiana State, UMass, Austin Peay, Eastern Michigan, Ball State, Eastern Illinois, and Western Kentucky. That's their next 5 years of non-conference games. Now, 2030, Notre Dame's on there. Okay, that's great, but I don't know if the sport even exists in 2030 at this point. So, but yeah, they have a couple spots like 26. They need a game. 28. They need a game. So we'll see. Maybe they put somebody that's in a bigger conference in there and give themselves a challenge. But for now, they are definitely going the route of let's stack wins and worry about the rest of it later.
Yeah, absolutely. When we come back, Mike Craven tells us what he learned at the TSHCA convention, which is like every college coach in the world wants to get into that thing with the Texas high school coaches. This is 365 Sports.
Alan Samuels in Waco, your Central Texas commercial headquarters. Get a new Ram 2500 crew cab starting at just $43,990. Don't miss the savings during the Make This the Summer event. Alan Samuels.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don's Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions, IT success guaranteed.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Paul, Catalina, and Craig Smoak, and our good friend Mike Craven from Dave Campbell's Texas Football. And Mike, the TSHCA convention, the Texas High School Coaches Convention, is a wild thing in that there's probably only 2 or 3 other states that could even come close to replicating it, but because the Texas high school coaches are so well organized compared to everywhere else in the country, it turns into not only a high school coaches convention, but very much a college coaches convention, and everybody comes to it. What did you learn at the convention?
Oh, well, a lot. You know, it's 2 or 3 days. There's about 15,000 coaches that come through there, high school, college, not just football. You know, they do basketball, volleyball, all sorts of stuff there. It's half information, half networking. You know, what's cool for me on the college side is that all 13 FBS coaches do a press conference. They have like a 20, 25-minute window. They do, 7 on one day, 6 on the other, and they just kind of revolving door style through the room so you can ask a bunch of questions. And they're usually more big picture stuff. It's not necessarily getting to the nuts and bolts of their team, but more, rev share and how that's going to work and what their confidence is on the new cap and what that's been like, just recruiting in the future, that kind of stuff. So it was a great event.
Was there any sort of a reaction that you were able to gauge when basically all of the work that had been put into this cap was suddenly just kind of potentially dismissed over the last 24, 48 hours?
I think it's what most of the coaches believed. I've told this on a few podcasts. Like, my wife doesn't know anything about sports at all. Like, she's literally never been to a football game in her life, but she works in contract law. And I would always kind of bounce stuff off of her because she had no skin in the game. And I'd be like, how are they going to enforce this idea of fair market value? And she was always dumbfounded by it, because fair market value is what you're willing to get or what somebody is willing to pay you. Like Dave Campbell, tomorrow ESPN comes and they offer me $400,000. Dave Campbell can't be like, well, that's not fair market value. It's like, the hell it's not, right? So I think most of the coaches assumed the NCAA has gotten sued into oblivion. They never win. Why would they start winning now? This is a soft cap to where, there is going to be some money on top of it, and the punishment of it and the ability to kind of hone it in, I just don't think they ever believe. I mean, Sonny Dykes said it himself. He said, I asked him, what is your confidence that this cap is a hard cap? And he said probably about 1% as he was laughing, and so I don't think it was that much of a shocker.
Yeah, and also I think probably in some of your reporting and others reporting over the last few months, I mean, Texas Tech was prepared for this specifically. I think it was mentioned in multiple stories about how they were spending all this money now, but they were prepared for if, in fact, the House settlement turned into what it was supposed to turn into or what people hoped it would be, but that they also had this other lever that, hey, if it doesn't go the way people expect, then we're ready to keep spending all the cash that we can. So I would think that they might even have been excited by the news, you would think.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think schools like Texas Tech, SMU, they're enjoying kind of the space that they're getting to live in. It's allowed them into the club. You don't if everything went back to normal and everyone had the same amount of money, like if the offensive tackle at Texas, SMU, and Texas Tech could get about the same money, recruiting would go back to what it was before, where now facilities make a difference, playing for national championships maybe make a difference, playing for the conference makes a difference, and those still do, right? I mean, those still matter. But I think teams like Texas Tech, teams like SMU, just to keep it inside my state, I think that they've benefited from this ability to go above and beyond and entice guys in a way that maybe they couldn't before because they don't have the history and the tradition and the facilities and the 100,000 donors and the huge stadiums. Like, it's allowed them to have a little bit of an evening factor. And so I think for them, for Tech, for SMU, for schools like that who are trying to climb from that mid-tier to that top tier, this allows them to do it. Oregon's probably another one, right? Like, this allows them to keep kind of pushing on that lever that maybe they haven't been able to in the past.
Yeah, Mike, it was 3 weeks from implementation to the new guidance. It didn't take long. Like, what's going to happen 3 weeks from now? Like, that's where when that gets into structure, I can't imagine being a coach right now and trying to keep up with it. Although, yeah, breathing the sigh of relief of, well, I mean, at least we don't have to completely change what we were doing. How many though, did you get the feeling that their schools had not had the Texas Tech bifurcated plan of, we'll have this in case it doesn't go through, and then this in case it does, are now maybe scrambling a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to remember that half the teams in the state can't play this game anyway.
Yeah.
right? Like none of the G5 schools care about any of this stuff because they're not reaching the top of the cap regardless. Like the Sun Belt's probably going to spend $1 million to $2 million per team. Conference USA is probably lower than that, 500,000 to $1 million. I mean, Liberty's in its own bucket. The Americans probably $2 or $3 million. Most teams, maybe Memphis is closer to $5 million. Like they're not getting anywhere close to the $15 million range that a lot of these P4 teams get. But I think that's been Texas Tech's big advantage. Is it feels like Cody Campbell just he's a smart guy, right? You don't have that many billions of dollars and run that many companies without kind of understanding how the economy works and kind of being able to read the tea leaves. I think he just was on the front foot of this and challenged Texas Tech, McGuire, their athletic director, Kobe Hoka, to kind of figure out what the loopholes were and to figure out how to best take advantage of this system. They've had a really good plan, and they front loaded. Like one of the smart things Texas Tech did was they got all of these deals done before July 1 and paid them with money that can't be that this clearinghouse was never going to be able to retroactively enforce anyway. And so like they were able to keep all of their rev share money like for the next following season. So I don't think Texas Tech's going to touch any of their rev share for 2025. Like they're going to spend it out of pocket, save that rev share, and then use it in 2026 to have a bigger budget than most other schools have. And now with these new regulations and the ability to use collectives again, like I would imagine Tech plays this game in perpetuity. I don't know if teams like Baylor and Houston and TCU are going to do it.
Who's your favorite coach? I mean, as you said, all the Texas head coaches are up there. Who's your favorite to listen to? Because there is definitely some different styles and different, personalities.
It's a great question. I'm going to get text messages for answering. I would probably say it's Sonny Dykes because maybe it's just because I kind of align more with his beliefs of what college football is, but he's a pretty honest guy. He doesn't give you a lot of coach speak.
He's blunt. Yeah.
He'll tell you what you think. He'll talk big picture stuff. And I enjoy kind of listening to that. And I think it's refreshing in a world where you're getting a lot of PR most of the time.
Will you get as many text messages as when you put out the Eric Morris quote on the Pac-12?
Yeah, well, probably because that only attended a conference that I know nobody in. This one is picking favorites with 13 guys that I
True. What do you gather from the way that the coaches the college coaches come to this thing in Moss and kind of get in front of these high school coaches? What are they mostly talking about outside of this is how we run RPOs at SMU kind of a thing?
I mean, a lot of it's kissing the ring, like the THSDA is a mafia, and I don't think that they would take offense from that, and this is kind of the yearly shindig, right, where they get together and they discuss the yearly revenue and like what's going to happen and what their big goals are. I think for a lot of it, the college coaches get together and they have a meeting with the THSDA kind of leadership, like Joe Martin and West and those guys. And I think one of the big deals is talking about like how to keep more and more of the in-state talent in state. The high school coaches are very into what they call straight line recruiting, where you recruit through them. You don't go through agents. You don't go through trainers. Like the point of contact for these players needs to be the head coaches. They have the best interest in mind, et cetera, et cetera. And I think some of the college coaches have a pushback of like, that's great. You want us to like do this straight line recruiting and, you want us to recruit your kids in a certain way, but like, why are half of the best players in the top 20, top 50, like going out of state? Like how do y'all help us recruit these kids? Steve Sarkisian kind of had a statement about that of, if I'm going to lose a guy in state, I'd love to lose him to A&M or to SMU or to Texas Tech. And some of that's because he doesn't want to play him at LSU or Ohio State or Alabama. But I think some of that is also, it makes it easier if you're only competing against your other peers, I suppose. And, this state's always had like a mass exodus of talent. And it's why we don't have as many like national championships as maybe the talent level would suggest the state of Texas should. It's just such a big state with so many schools, and then Oklahoma comes in and LSU comes in, Alabama comes in. So I think they just talk about big picture stuff like that, like what the college coaches can do to help the high school, realm, and what the high school coaches can do to kind of help the college football realm, and just stay on the same page about NIL and rep share and all those kind of dirty words that are getting thrown into the mix now.
I'd like to, since you brought it up about Texas and the state not having as many national championships, I think part of it is because of what you said. I think that's a large part of it, that especially like just Oklahoma alone dipping down into Texas and cherry picking what they wanted forever has been a huge issue. And then you add in everybody else coming in and getting what they want. I would also say that the Southwest Conference really hurt that, in that, especially in the 80s, when the other schools around the country were kind of focused on how do we win our conference and then beat up on each other. The Southwest Conference didn't care about beating anybody but themselves, and ultimately it hurt them because they couldn't be bothered to know what Notre Dame or Florida State or Miami or Ohio State were doing, because all that mattered was the jockeying of, I've got to beat these guys that I'm in the oil business with, kind of a thing.
And I think for a lot of the young people right now, like, the world's smaller than it's ever been. Like, it's easier to go out of state than it was in 1988 or 1998 with FaceTime and social media. And, you can get on the sticks and play a video game against your brother back at home, and just talk to him and chat with him. Like, and now you're getting paid, so it's easier to fly mom out. Hell, if you want her to, she can come live out there with you, right? Like, if you're getting paid $1 million by Texas Tech to transfer there, like, your family can come live with you for Lubbock for a year if that's really what you want to seal the deal. So I just think it's easier than ever to go out of state, and the coaches understand that. They're just trying to win, and they want to keep all the good players in-house if they can.
Mike Craven, Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Mike, what's the next big story you're working on?
What's nice about THSCA, like I said, you get all 13 of these coaches, so you can kind of run one off of each one. And so I'll probably just use the stuff I got from there and kind of sprinkle it out between now and kind of the start of the season. And this is kind of the time to start. I always look at that event as kind of the unofficial start of the season. And so now it's starting to look ahead. And, week 1, Texas, Ohio State. So I'll probably write something about the last time Texas played at Ohio State in that game with the Lyman Sweet catch. It's just kind of all right. I'm kind of formulating those things as we speak. So to be determined.
You wrote earlier this week about SMU a couple days ago and them year 1 in the ACC making the college football playoff. How do they avoid a drop off this year now that people see them coming?
I'm not sure they can. Like, I think that there's a realistic possibility that SMU is a better football team in 2025, but has a worse record. Their non-conference is tougher. They play Baylor at home. They go at TCU in a game that's going to be huge for both of those fan bases. It's the last scheduled Iron Skillet. Obviously, last year SMU trounced TCU. Sonny Dykes gets ejected in that game. And so there's going to be a lot riding on that. So they have a tougher non-conference schedule. And then you go at Clemson, you play Miami. You didn't play either of those in the regular season. So let's say you split the Big 12 non-con and then lose to those 2 games. Like, you could be 9-3 at the end of the year and still feel like you're a pretty good football team, and it won't look like you improved at all. So I think for SMU right now, what I find fascinating is their transition from a very portal-based model. When Sonny got there at SMU, 7-8 years ago, I think his feeling was, and he was right, the type of talent we need to win conference championships, we can't get through recruiting. We're going to have to get through the portal. So they went ahead and built a roster that won 10 games for the first time in 40 years. They won the American Athletic Conference. They just got to the AAC or ACC championship in year 1 through the portal. But they don't want to do that every year. They saw Florida State and what happened there, and they know it's going to be volatile. Like, you're going to be up, you're going to be down. And now with RevShare, the talent in the portal isn't as talented as it was 5 years ago. You're able to keep players at an Iowa State and like those type of programs that maybe you weren't previously because you can pay them. So they want to start recruiting the way Texas does and Texas A&M does. And if you look at their class this year, like, they beat Oklahoma for a few commitments. They got a flip from an LSU commit. Like, they're starting to kind of swim in some waters that, I was born in 1985. Like, it's crazy to me that SMU is able to do this kind of stuff. It feels like make-believe, right? Like, this is a story my uncles told me that I never believed, like SMU being good. And so it may not happen this year, but I do think that they're going to be more and more talented, and they're just trying to bulk up the roster, and they'll be interested to see kind of the short-term versus long-term success they have as they transition between these 2 models.
What is, now that SEC Media Days is over, what's the sense that you get from A&M on how Mike Elko's culture has taken maybe a deeper root in year 2?
Yeah, I'm trying to say this without sounding too mean. Like, Texas A&M just needed an adult in the room, and Mike Elko has provided that. Like, you don't hear. When's the last time you saw an off-season thing about A&M? Like, they stay out of the way. Their players don't get in trouble. You don't hear a bunch about that. They're not making any unnecessary headlines and like talking about things that they probably shouldn't, that all of a sudden becomes bulletin board material. They're just going about their business. And I think that's what they wanted in Elko. Like, they wanted like more of an R.C. Slocum defensive coach who just kind of had some maturity about him. You've seen the recruiting. I mean, they have a top 5 recruiting class in 2027 or 2026 right now. And Elko says it takes about a year to really get he calls recruiting a 2-year process. And so now they have their hooks in some guys, and they're starting to get some wins on the recruiting trail. So, I don't know if it'll be this year. I think that probably depends more on Marcel Reed than anything. But I do think A&M is moving in the right direction and has some confidence to it that it's going to allow us to see if they're able to reach their ceiling in a way that, I don't think the previous coaches of the last 10 or 15 years have really given them a chance to.
I'm going to give you a story pitch right now about them. We've talked about it on our show. It would require talking to some fans, obviously, but I don't think there's a fan base that has given more or in a university a system that has pushed their chips further to the middle of the table and been the same more than Texas A&M in any sport across the board in college athletics. Like, they are fully committed. But for whatever reason, no matter what they do, what they change, how much money they spend on something, they wake up in the morning and they're still the same. It is so bizarre.
I think it's a lack of leadership. Since they've joined the SEC, I think they've had 4 athletic directors and 4 presidents, university presidents. And so it's just like, it's constantly a kitchen. I've been watching The Bear. So it's like constantly like a restaurant that has like a new head chef that's trying to take them in a new direction. It's like, how do you get good at anything? I grew up around the UT football program. My grandfather was the team doctor, rehab specialist, strength and conditioning guy for Coach Royal. And then, he stayed along for a very long time there. And so I don't think it was a coincidence that Texas was really good at stuff when DeLoss Dodds was there, and then he left, and they just like toiled for 10 or 15 years. Through the Steve Patterson ages and all that kind of stuff. Like, and then they got good again when Chris Del Conte got there and kind of stabilized stuff. Like, Texas State is in the Pac-12 because they got a university president that gave a rip. And I just think A&M, from their head coaches for the conversation we just had, to their ADs, to the university presidents, I don't think they've had the alignment and the stability that's necessary to compete with the Alabamas and the Georgias and the Texases of the world. Like, you need, and that's the difference, I think, between being a tier 2 athletic program that goes 8-4 every year and one that's a national champion. And maybe they figure that out and get that done behind the scenes and have the stability necessary to punch up and to break into that next group.
Mike Craven, Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Mike, thanks a lot. The next time you're in Waco, we've got to get you in studio, man.
All right. I'm trying to think. Baylor's got a pretty good home schedule this year, so I imagine I'm in Waco, especially if they do as well as we think that they're going to do. But I'll probably be at a Baylor game early in the season. I think it'll be week 2 at SMU.
Oh, I would have thought you would have been here week 1 with Auburn coming in.
I will be on a plane to Columbus.
Okay.
On that
So
Friday.
now we see the hierarchy, Craven. Now we see it.
I've never been to the shoe. I got to knock that off the bucket list. I'm at that point in the career where it's just like kind of traveling around and trying to see how many cool stadiums I can go to.
No. And I am jealous of you on that. Mike, we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Appreciate y'all.
All right. Mike Craven, Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Next up, she is on Feinbaum right now. So she'll be might be a little bit behind. I want to take a break. I want to talk about something in the break so we can kind of like sift through it. But there's a massive realignment rumor from Inside Carolina.
Oh, I saw that earlier.
That's just hit. Craig, I'm sure you've seen it. I sent it to you guys. We'll talk about that until Amanda comes on, and we can talk about it later. Craig Smoak's off the radar after Amanda Christovich, and then the Ole Miss schedule, Mickey Spagnola, and the top 5. All coming up. This is 365 Sports.
Allen Samuels House of Travel is a full-service travel agency with highly experienced travel consultants plus support staff with over a combined 150 years in the travel business. They are ready to take care of any travel situation for you, your family, and your business, and with the kind of knowledge to complete a seamless itinerary trip start to finish. They will search for the best deal to accommodate your budget from air to cars, ship to shore, hotel, and even meeting space. Name a destination and they've been there. They know the places to go, and international and missionary travel is one of their unique specialties. Allen Samuels House of Travel, celebrating 50 years in business. Call Connie, Sherry, Linda, or Bambi at 254-776-2560 or find them on Facebook or at houseoftravelwaco.com. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
Amanda Christovich, Front Office Sports, joins us and here on 365 Sports. Amanda, thank you so much for being our go-to. There's a lot today. You had to jump on the second most important Paul in the College Football Spaces show before mine, which is ours our show. I mean, it just, when I hear, hey, Paul, all the time at some of these things, and they're making fun of, that show and not talking to me. So maybe I'm just a little bit just professionally jealous. I don't know. So, yeah. But the reason you had to do that, and we do, for our viewers, there is a realignment story that popped today. It's kind of interesting about North Carolina. We'll get to that once Amanda, we release her to the rest of her day. So I was going to talk to you about some of the other things that have happened this week, but today the president's executive order came down on saving college sports. My question to you, Amanda, on this executive order and this, what happens in 2028 if the Republicans aren't in power then and this stuff hasn't gotten implemented in any way and the SCORE Act doesn't go through? Then it's just a piece of paper, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, that's the tricky thing about executive orders, right? They are a lot less concrete, for lack of a better term, than actual legislation that's passed in Congress. The executive order that Trump just signed today, it definitely is a supplement and a complement to the SCORE Act. It doesn't contradict the SCORE Act really at all in any meaningful way. The U.S. House representatives who are spearheading the SCORE Act came out with a statement saying that they're in favor of it, and they believe it complements their legislation. But that's exactly what it is. It's a signal. To me, it's a signal that Trump is saying, I'm behind this Republican effort to grant the NCAA its wish list. The actual executive order itself doesn't have a lot of teeth for the things that it actually wants to do. And, about there are some things about banning third-party pay-for-play payments, but ultimately it sort of just directs different agencies to look into various aspects of college sports, and that's sort of the name of the game with executive orders.
One of those agencies is the Department of Education, Amanda, one that they seek to eliminate. So that's another thing that I'm kind of confused about.
Yeah, and you know what? I was equally as confused about that when I covered the executive order that banned transgender athletes from competing in women's sports. Because regardless of what you think about any of these issues, the mechanism, well, at least with that executive order, President Trump was actually trying to implement a ban that would hold up in court. And the way that he was going to do so was through the Department of Education, which, as you said, is an agency that he ultimately, at least the national office of it, he hopes to sunset. The Department of Education is a little bit less involved in this executive order. I believe it's supposed to commission a study about, just like the health of women's sports and Olympic sports, but some of the more meaty things are about athlete compensation, which isn't exactly the Department of Education's purview. Although I guess you could say it could be. I don't know. I'm talking myself around in circles.
Yeah, I know a lot of it's commerce and NLRB and all those things, but that's almost too boring to get into. But just 2 days ago, the House settlement had to morph once again back to basically what it was before anyway. So what's the point of the CSC if the House settlement can keep changing, and how do they actually build a structure when they've kind of already whiffed on the biggest thing that they wanted to do?
Well, I think what's interesting about this post-House settlement structure that a lot of folks didn't really understand or even know is that in the actual settlement document, there are stipulations that give the plaintiff counsel the ability to, bring these concerns to oversee the implementation of the House settlement over the next 10 years. So yeah, the College Sports Commission is going to be, enforcing the House settlement. But if the College Sports Commission does something that the House plaintiff attorneys deem to be, illegal or not in the spirit of the settlement, then they can, they can call a foul and they can bring all the athletes back, or all the lawyers back to the negotiating table. And that's exactly what they did with this guidance from 2 weeks ago about whether or not collectives are going to be able to offer deals that are going to be accepted through NIL Go. So, we're talking about who is running college sports, right? It's the power conferences, it's the College Sports Commission, it's, the NCAA to a lesser extent. But ultimately, it's also the House plaintiff attorneys, because in the agreement, it says that they, for the next 10 years, get to watch how these rules are implemented and challenge and force all of the attorneys for the conferences to come back to the negotiating table every time they do something that the plaintiff attorneys disagree with.
Yeah, I wondered how long it would take for that fair market value thing to come back and bite them. Because, again, they didn't really give a definition of it. Every coach that we've talked to, every coach that I've read people have talked to, they were like, yeah, okay, great. Well, what is that? And they didn't give a definition for it. They just kind of threw it out there. And then Deloitte's like, we've got this system that the computer will tell you what fair market value is. And I just kind of had a feeling that Jeffrey Kessler was like, no, it won't.
Well, look, I think there is a world in which the House plaintiff attorneys would be okay with NIL Go functioning, and accepting, approving, and denying deals if a component of that wasn't denying an entire type of deal from NIL collectives. That was never supposed to be what the House settlement was going to do. The House settlement, maybe the defendant conferences wanted it to eliminate collectives, but in my reading of it and talking to collectives all over the country, that wasn't their reading of it either. They understood they needed to change some of their operations. You know, you have to offer like an autograph signing, or, you know, you have to offer social media, or you have to offer something, you know, in exchange for money as a player, right? Like you can't just take the money. You have to offer an NIL activity. But no one ever, you know, or at least I didn't think that that meant that if a collective couldn't offer it at all. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, and that's what the CSU was trying to say, and that's just not what the plaintiff lawyers thought was going to be the case.
Well, the other thing is, I mean, you just mentioned it, there's kind of an easy way around it, though. If you just say, you know, let's just use, you know, Nico Amaliava at UCLA and his new agreement that he has there, he has to do 3 autograph signings by the time he leaves. Like he can knock that off on Memorial Day weekend and call it a day. You know, like that's all he has to do. So that's why it was just weird to me that they would even try to shoehorn something like that in there and expect not to get pushback on it. That's where I think all this gets weird, is the NCAA keeps trying to do these things and they keep losing, instead of like looking ahead going, okay, how do we make sure that this is the last time that we really have to talk to these guys for 10 years?
Right. Totally. Although I will say what's super interesting is the College Sports Commission is the power conferences. It's not the NCAA.
Yeah.
So the NCAA lawyers were involved in these discussions. But what I find so fascinating, and I'm literally sitting here at Big Ten Media Days across from the room where Commissioner Petiti may or may not be at this exact moment. I spoke with him yesterday. The power conferences are the ones who are trying to set these restrictions now, which I can't figure out for the life of me. I just don't understand why they have taken on the NCAA's ideology in that sense. It's very strange. It doesn't make any sense to me, and I don't think it makes sense to a lot of their constituents either.
You mentioned Tony Petiti. You talked to him yesterday. One of the things was about private equity, and Brett Yormark kind of told everybody that they've put it on pause for right now, that they're looking for more traditional avenues of revenue. And he had said it had to be bespoke to the Big 12. And so anything that happened would have to be specific. It was more capital than equity, so to speak. What does Tony Petiti say about it for a league that doesn't really need it, but if there's money there, they're going to take it?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting to me because he seemed more interested in it than the other power conference commissioners did, or at least, I mean, look, a conference commissioner, like I know Brett Yormark was interested in private equity, but ultimately he has to do what his university presidents want him to do, and the university presidents directed him to sort of give up on it for now. Like they weren't interested. But the Big Ten is still having these conversations. Tony Petiti said that nothing is crystallized. It's going to be a long way away if they do jump into the private capital, private equity game, but he's still having these conversations, and it is something that they're still exploring. And when I sort of said, okay, so there aren't really like active conversations right now, like, you know, but it's something you'd be interested in, he said, no, I don't want to downplay. Like there are conversations. And I just found that really striking, given that you know, Greg Sankey and Jim Phillips have also, in addition to Yormark, said that they've explored it, but ultimately like don't really see it. Don't really see a role for private equity at the conference level at this point.
He's the most different of the four. Like they're kind of unique, but he's a little bit of the outlier. He has spent this time doubling down on the AQ format as well. Do you believe that is political bluster to get the SEC to just go to the 9 games so then they can explain to their coaches like 5-11 is what everybody's doing, or is he a true believer in what he's come up with?
That's a really great question, and that's an interesting theory about the 9 games. Look, I'm not inside his head, so I can't really speak to like, you know, it's like I can't really speak to like the ultimate motivations there. But when I asked him about the CFP, I sort of said, look, like ultimately the decision lies with you and SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey, right? But if Greg doesn't budge on this, then your model is not going to be adopted, and the other commissioners aren't in favor of your model either. The coaches at the Big Ten Media Days were definitely in favor of Commissioner Petitti's model, just putting that out there. But ultimately, like, the actual voting power lies with Petitti and Sankey. So I said, what is your plan to convince Greg Sankey that this is the right way to go? And he didn't really have a plan. It was more just, about having these conversations. And, I didn't end up joking with him. What? Are you going to hire a lobbyist for Greg, to sit outside of Greg Sankey's office? But I didn't say that, but I thought it, So I think, I'm not really sure. I think ultimately, look, when you negotiate, you ask for more than what you think you're going to get so that you can meet in the middle. So whatever meeting in the middle means for him, whether that means, being able to alter the selection committee, the way they operate, or, the 9 games for the SEC, whatever he's really gunning for, maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, he went so hard, this week, but he didn't say anything for a long time. And it just feels to me that it's not really they're going to get essentially what they want in a 5+11 anyway. And the SEC coaches have said, okay, well, if we do 4-4, we might only get 4. As we do 5 and 11, we'll probably get 6 on a normal year. And the Big Ten,
right,
probably 5 in a lot of years. So it just felt to me like it was more of a chess move than something he truly believes in, or he's just trying to sell more TV games to people, because he is, after all, a TV executive.
Yeah, and I know that was floated. I can't substantiate that report. I think that's always true, that commissioners, especially at this level of college sports, they wouldn't be doing their job if they weren't trying to maximize television revenue. I don't think it's this great conspiracy that may have crossed his mind, that he may have talked to television executives about the potential upside of this new format in a 16-team playoff. And by the way, the 16-team playoff is going to yield more money anyway, so long as ESPN has agreed to pay for extra games. It's interesting because with March Madness, with the women's tournament, I know for a fact that ESPN's agreement says that they won't pay for expansion. So just, you have to see what's in the agreement. But I don't think it's any great conspiracy that would be a factor. Everyone's trying to maximize a postseason for television revenue, because that benefits everybody, no matter how many AQs they have.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for hopping on. I know you've been crazy busy there at the Mandalay Bay. We were there a couple years ago for the Super Bowl when they had Super Bowl Radio Row there. It's bigger than I ever thought for a place.
Yes.
But if you do like sushi, I do think if you're in the same place we were, there's a really good place that way from you. So just judging
in Mandalay Bay, I think I ate there last night. It was pretty good.
There you go. So that's where I ate. That's where I ate the first night. That's all right. One of the nights we were out and about doing there. So anyway, Amanda, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon when the next big meteor crashes.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Amanda Christovich, Front Office Sports. Craig Smoak's Off the Radar is next, and we'll talk North Carolina and the report from inside Carolina. This is 365 Sports.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people. Good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Car Motors, we are people you can count on.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
Welcome into 365 Sports. Welcome back for many of you. And I'm going to call an audible here. I mean, I think we were both kind of distracted during the break, but I don't have much in the way of news because there's really not a lot of news today. I'm going to talk about the death of Hulk Hogan, which, Paul, I'm a little pissed we got all the way to 449 and haven't mentioned Hulk Hogan, but I knew that you were going to get to it at some point. But I think, should we save this for later, or should we just go ahead and do it right now? Because I know you keep teasing this North Carolina thing.
Let's go ahead and do it right now, and then we can talk about Hulk Hogan when we're done with this. Or do you want to talk about Hulk Hogan first? Let's just talk about Hulk Hogan first, and then we'll get to Inside Carolina.
Okay, well, here you have it. The Hulkster passing away today. The immortal Hollywood. I mean, a variety of different names, and yet always like this polarizing and massive megastar in the wrestling business, and sometimes in pop culture, certainly over the decades. After some reports the last few days that he had been in ill health, today wake up to the news that, in fact, Hulk Hogan has passed away at age 71, as it says there, after complications from surgery. I had read something along the lines of he had suffered cardiac arrest. They showed up at his house in Florida, and then I assume tried to do what they could to save him, and were unable to keep him with us. So Hulk Hogan, whose legacy, quite frankly, over the last couple of years has become much more complicated than it ever was previously. He's no longer with us, man. And I got to say, this is one of those, there's been a lot of like passings here recently that haven't really hit me in the feels. And this one does to an extent, not as much as like maybe it would have a few years ago, because I just don't look at him exactly the way I did when I was a kid. But this was the guy who made me love pro wrestling. Well, and here I am 3 decades later, and I still love it as much as I did when he first made me love it. I'm a Bret Hart guy, and that's my dude. But before I was a Bret Hart guy, I was a Hulk Hogan guy. I was a Hulkamaniac when I was just a young kid. My youngest memory as a child is being in the living room at a house we lived in and watching Earthquake destroy Hulk Hogan. And I believed in it all, man. I was too young to know any different. And it was actually when kayfabe was introduced to me and the curtain was ripped down and I was told, because I was so devastated by what Earthquake was doing to my beloved Hulk Hogan, that I had to be told by my father, it's all fake. And I was like, what? Like, I don't even know like what I said beyond that, but it was, I clearly remember being told that and going, huh? And so kayfabe died for me the day that Earthquake I thought was going to kill Hulk Hogan. Of course, I've come to know much more in 30 plus years since then, but I remember that vividly. Like, I remember having to be consoled because I thought Hulk Hogan was really hurt. And that's my earliest wrestling memory for sure, and one of my earliest memories of my entire life, period. And it still sticks with me. I still remember the house. I've seen the clips all these years later, and that's just one of many memories he would provide over the years. Complicated man, especially later on in life, was polarizing for various reasons, but ultimately a massive star in the world of entertainment. And I could go on and on. I could do a whole podcast about the passing of Hulk Hogan, but just sad to see that. My fandom had definitely worn down over the years with just like the Bubba the Love Sponge stuff and just his racist stuff. And then he's just, if you know about the wrestling business, people who are detractors, don't let them try to put them in the corner. Well, they didn't like his politics. No, they didn't like his politics in wrestling when he held a lot of guys down and screwed a lot of guys over. And the more that became apparent over the years, that's the reasons why I started to like him less and less and less, when you realize he was too influential in some ways, but I still liked him overall well enough, and always will be appreciative of him lighting that spark in me that's still here. And it's like the only thing besides baseball and football that's still with me all these years later. So I was a bit sad to see that. This was not surprised. It wasn't out of nowhere. There had been some reporting recently that he was in ill health, and he had some of the people in his camp that were, talking about it and keeping it sort of generalized, but you could kind of sense that something wasn't going right. And he's 71 years old. And then sure enough, here a few days later, he actually passes. So yeah, man, RIP to Hulk Hogan. You live long enough, you're going to see people pass away. And I'm kind of getting to that point now where it just feels like it's like a bunch of people a lot more often than it ever felt before. And this one's a major one for me for sure.
Yeah. And look, there is no WWE in the form it is now without someone like Hulk.
The's no pro wrestling in the form it's in right now.
It would have stayed the way it was, where it was, regionalized, I guess. Or maybe. I mean, like it would always been something, but he was one who helped it take it out of kind of a niche thing into this big, gigantic, he
was a massive star that WWF signed in the 80s, and Vince McMahon built him up into his biggest star that he had ever had, that the business had ever seen. There were other great wrestlers around, but it was more regionalized, like a Ric Flair, like a Harley Race, Bruno Sammartino. There were people that were before him, but he took it and was the face of it when it went to a level that it had never seen before, when they started doing the whole rock and wrestling crossover with Cyndi Lauper, and that led into the first WrestleMania, and then that's turned into what it's turned into 40 plus years later. I mean, he's largely responsible for all of the popularity, or a large amount of that popularity back then, along with a Randy Savage and a Macho Man and a Piper and various others, but he was the guy. And I've seen some Mount Rushmore talk, and I feel like there are three guys on the wrestling Mount Rushmore that, if you're talking about just like overall meaning to the business, he is absolutely on there. And if he's not on that, then you must be doing a niche one where it's like the best in-ring workers. Yeah. Okay, he's not on that one. But if you're doing just in general, like the most influential, the most popular, the biggest stars, he is absolutely on there. And he is one of those four spots. You can debate the rest of them. I think John Cena is also on there. I think Stone Cold Steve Austin's also on there. And then I think everybody can have a debate about four. And like, is it Flair? Is it this guy? Is it that guy? But he's number one on the list. And maybe
say The Rock.
I think, he would be in the conversation with Flair.
But he's in that fourth rotation kind of a thing.
He'd be in the fourth rotation. I think Cena, Austin, and Hogan are all like automatics, and then I think the fourth depends on kind of your classification and how you like your flavoring. But he's definitely on there, if not the unanimous number one. And so, yeah, man, wrestling is what it is today in large part because of Hulk Hogan, for sure.
Yeah, we lived in the same town for a while, and I was on several flights. Like the one I remember the most, but I do know he was on a couple different flights with me. Like I've been on planes with Ted Nugent like 4 times.
If you lived in the Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater area,
you saw him.
You saw him at some point,
a lot.
for sure.
Like,
yeah,
he was just like he was one of like the Tampa local celebrities. Like, you just like you would be at a restaurant, no matter what kind of restaurant it was. Like if you were at, you could be at a really nice like Burton Steakhouse, fancy steakhouse, and you might run into Hulk Hogan on that night. You see him there, or you could be at a Beef O'Brady's and you're like, oh, this is the Beef O'Brady's clearly by his house because he's here getting wings. But we were on a flight. I told the guys the story earlier, and this is shortly after 9/11 when they were still doing the thing where you go through TSA and then you're at your flight, and as you're getting on the flight, they were randomly screening people. And so he and I were both picked for random screening.
Were you shocked at how big he was?
Yeah.
I mean, he's massive dude.
Massive dude. But yeah, he's massive. Then I saw the Undertaker like later, and then I realized how big the Undertaker is, and I thought like, holy crap, these big guys bigger than this. He had to take off his fanny pack, which I thought was hilarious. I was trying not to laugh, but the only time I spoke with him was ever in my life. It's not like I knew him, but we were on that flight and we both got pulled and we were standing by the window there at Tampa Airport. And he's like, this is bullshit.
Brother.
And it was funny because they clearly did it because whoever saw him on the list was like, oh, we can get some pictures with the Hulkster.
For sure.
Like that was like, the real
the only
American
guns
hero.
he was packing were those 24-inch pythons, baby. That's all he had.
Yeah. So we had that shared experience, but yeah, he's like the Gawker thing. Like there's so much, we know too much about him now, which makes it complicated. Is the best.
We've seen him naked. If you saw like the video, that whole thing.
Yeah, we've seen all that stuff. I'll compare it for you. Like for me, it's Bill Cosby. Like it's the Dark Knight thing of you that die the hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Yeah, very much so.
And the reason I wanted to get into comedy and be a funny person and try to do all that was because I listened to every Bill Cosby album and had to memorize by the time I was 10, And so then when all this stuff happened with Bill Cosby, it was just like, well, damn, and it had nothing to do with anything else other than like, well, I guess that's over. And with Hulk, it's like, yeah, golly, you got to hate that he turned out to be kind of an SOB. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't put him in the Cosby class.
No, I mean,
let me explain.
Yeah.
But I agree with you on, I would in terms of you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And I do think that was the case for him of where just little incidents over the years all added up and left a bad taste in people's mouth. And for me, it wasn't the Gawker situation, which he was actually the victim in that whole deal. It actually saved him financially, that entire thing. Otherwise, I don't know. He'd have probably been doing some other wrestling gigs to make money. But he ended up
couldn't do it. Really,
he ended up
physically done.
Well off and was fine. But that did save him at a certain point in life. But between that and just and I know for some people it was his actual politics, but for me, when I started to just kind of go like, I don't know that it was the wrestling politics. It was knowing the number of cool things that we did not get to see that we should have seen because of him, because of what he ruined. And I can point to like specific things like Sting at Starrcade in 97 should have been a really cool moment. Like he played a part in ruining that. And yeah, he wasn't best for business for everybody else a lot of the time, and very selfish in that regard. So that's why for me, I started to kind of just not view him the way I did when he was the guy who was untouchable as a youngster. But yeah, he had various other things over the years where his divorce was very messy, like very public stuff. And again, you live long enough, you see yourself become the villain. The last time we saw him, he appeared on a Monday Night Raw. He had done a sponsorship deal with WWE for his Real American Beer Company, and they've been running the ads, and originally he was going to play a much bigger role. But he comes out on Monday Night Raw in Los Angeles with Jimmy Hart, who is his longtime best friend, at some points manager, and clearly they're expecting it's the Hulkster brother in LA. Like he had his Hollywood career at one point that did not go well, but
I think he was many awards snubbed him for Rocky III.
Oh yeah, his Thunder Lips. Yeah, dude, we could go on and on and on about his career, but he comes out and he gets absolutely blasted with the biggest chorus of sustained boos, just like, whoa, jaw-dropping that he got that kind of reception. And some point to his support of Trump and that they were in L.A., but I think it was a combination of just things over the years where people were just like, you're not like the.
It was a salad of all that
It was
stuff.
a salad. Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, that's the last time that a lot of us saw him. Was him getting rained down with booze in Los Angeles to the point where, like, they aired the commercials for the beer sponsorship and he like voiced it over, but he was not nearly as much of a part of it as I assume they planned that he would be, based entirely on that bad reaction. And so that sucks. It wasn't
a heel boo either. It wasn't
no. It was like a we don't like go away heat is what they call it. It was actually real like go away heat. We don't want you here. So that was the last time that I saw him outside of like those beer commercials on Raw. And yeah, man, I know that even if you aren't a wrestling fan, which is the majority of people, you know who Hulk Hogan is. You at some point saw him. He might even have hooked you into wrestling for a little while. So I will always thank him for the meaning that he had in my life, because he had a great deal of meaning in my life for a long time. And people are human and we're all messy. I'm not going to dwell on anything but the positives. And just a sad day because it's a piece of my childhood, right? It's like Willie Mays dying for some people or whoever. Like, this is a big one for me. So RIP to Hulk Hogan, age 71. And I got an autograph from him that my uncle got one time, because going back to when we were talking about if you lived in that area, you saw him. Yeah. My grandparents would run into him. We'd go to Krabby Bill's, which is up there, Indian Rocks Beach. Yeah. And they used to have like a wall of photographs of the wrestlers that would come in, because so many of them lived down there. And that too, like, aided in my fandom as a young kid. I'd go and look at the walls and like, there's Hulk with the owner, and there's Macho Man with the owner. And they're like, oh yeah, they all live here, right? I was like, no way, they all live here. And I wanted to live there as a kid because that's where all the wrestlers lived. And that was the Hulkster, baby. So provided me a lot of great memories over the years, some frustrating ones too, some unforgivable ones for the wrestling business, but no denying his impact and the place he holds near the top of all the big lists.
I would venture to say that most of them live in Florida. Like,
well, now they have like the training center out in Orlando. So even as much now as probably ever. Yeah.
Look, in Fort Myers, Fort Myers was where you were if you were like the middle on the way up, and then you would move to Tampa or Orlando.
Yeah.
But like when Diamond Dallas Page lived in Fort Myers for forever.
Yeah.
And then I think he moved, but I remember hearing him on the radio one morning, and it was in the NWO days.
DDP.
So it was in the NWO days, because he was like, yeah, Hogan's up in Tampa, and then I think Sting was somewhere in Florida. He wasn't in Fort Myers or Tampa.
They all lived up there.
He was somewhere there. And he was talking about it, and he's like, yeah, I live here now, man. And he's like, I like it. My house was cheaper than it would have been, and if I had moved to another place, and I'm on the beach, and I saw him like 2 times out in Fort Myers, but I saw literally, I did a show at the Tampa Improv one time that Bubba the Love Sponge was hosting, and Hulk Hogan was there.
Yeah.
So like he was way in the back, and I think he was just there for like a promotional, like, yeah, brother, these people are funny,
that was his buddy though for a time.
Yeah. So yeah, Bubba the Love Sponge was the MC of the thing. It was like local comedy fest, whatever. He was there. I saw him at Hooters like 6 times. So
well, he had his own store, the Beach Shop, that was like a restaurant and merchandise, or I guess memorabilia maybe they had in there. That was in Clearwater, I believe. And I never made it over there. I was like in the same shopping center one time, but we didn't go over there. But we did go by his house that he used to live in Bel Air, which I don't know if you know where Bel Air. He had a house in Bel Air that you saw on the reality show, if you ever watched that. And we drove by that one time because I'm just fascinated by it all. And so, yeah, very, very long memories going back to my early childhood of Hulk Hogan. So RIP to the Hulkster, age 71. And I saw a bunch of people making the comment of like, wow, Ric Flair outlasted like everybody. And unfortunately, I don't think we're probably that far away from, not trying to be like callous or anything, but I don't think we're that far away from him either. I mean, just age alone, but it is amazing. You would think that Ric Flair would have been like one of the first dudes to go based on his public lifestyle, but here he is. He's still kicking along.
If you told me during that documentary that they did about him that there was like a guy with an IV and a doctor on call just to make sure he made it through to the end of it.
Incidents here lately too. So that's why I'm saying that is I think we're just getting to that point now where they're all getting to certain ages, and that's just reality of people getting older. But yeah, Ric Flair outlasting pretty much his entire brotherhood of guys is pretty shocking. If you were doing like the death pool thing, I don't think you would have had Ric Flair as like the last man standing, but he kind of is. So yeah, man, I could go on and on, but I've probably gone on long enough. So there's that's off the radar though, baby. So here we are off the radar. RIP to Hulk Hogan, a complicated man, but one that gave a lot of people, millions and millions of people, a lot of fun memories and joy and entertainment over the years. And that's the part I'll remember more than anything else. And here I am, nearly 4 decades later, and I'm still a wrestling fan because of the Hulkster.
What?
So thank you for that, thank you for that, Hulkster.
Mine was always Andre the Giant.
Yeah, he's great.
Well, yeah, and it was because of Princess Bride. Like,
oh yeah.
So I had like that. Like I usually pick. Oh, he's in this and he does this. He's multi-talented.
Yeah. And
anybody want a peanut?
One of Hogan's biggest moments was slamming Andre. That was a moment that really put him in a different stratosphere. So there you go, off the radar. RIP to the Hulkster. Thanks for the memories. And I'll let everybody else dissect his legacy and all of that kind of jazz, but that's not what I'm really trying to do here. So, yeah, man, weird day and bittersweet. And coming up next, we will finally get into the North Carolina realignment conversation with reports out earlier today. This is 365 Sports.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved, learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Penny Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Penny Clinic Waco and reach out to the Penny Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pennycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
All right, finally, without further ado, we're going to push the Ole Miss schedule to tomorrow. So sorry for all you Ole Miss fans that were waiting for that breakdown. Golly, what's going on with me today?
Had a whole commercial break.
I had a whole commercial break, and then I start talking to them. I talked to the commercial break with you, and then here it comes. According to Inside Carolina, that UNC is aiming to leave the ACC for the SEC in the near future, which near future means 2030, 2031 school year, because that's when the exit fees dipped to $75 million. So Clemson and Florida State walked so North Carolina could run, I guess, in this. But we knew the whole time that North Carolina was not in the lawsuit, but watching going like, all right, let's see what's going to happen here, because of, the debate behind the scene that they even have with their beef with the conference. And it was from Adam Smith from Inside Carolina. His quote is this: "Make no mistake now, multiple sources told IC, Inside Carolina, the SEC is where the Tar Heels are aiming under the leadership of Roberts and Newmark. Should UNC move to leave the ACC for another league, perhaps in the near future." So that says should they leave, but there was a lot of Big Ten talk about them, when people thought the ACC was done. And here the ACC can't even get through media days without one of their big brands, rumors abounding that they want to leave.
Yeah, interesting timing, isn't it, to have this coming out, and they're wrapping up media days. And for what it's worth, Roberts is Lee Roberts, who's the still fresh school chancellor, who's been there for close to a year now, and then Steve Newmark, who's joining the Tar Heels as executive associate AD, and then will eventually succeed Bubba Cunningham. They are the two that are going to be the guys in charge, directing the future. And certainly there's been room to speculate about everything involving the ACC, which people have done now for at least 2 years. I mean, maybe even longer, but about 2 years, because it's been 2 or 3 since all of the first shockwaves of this new era, I guess you could say. Because if we could go back to A&M and we could go back to Nebraska, but that doesn't really serve the purpose here. So since Oklahoma and Texas, that's the starting point. Everything's been up for debate and for speculation, and we've tried to do it in moderation to the point where it's not like overkill, and it's based in reality. But any conversation about the ACC, when you start talking about the schools that would have the potential to go and make a jump up, so to speak, they were one of the quote-unquote Magnificent Seven, right? They were one of those schools. Now, among those 7, how high are they on the pecking order? Well, based on basketball and various history and geography and things of that nature, I think they're a very appetizing get for the Big Ten and for the SEC. You can see where they could have a little bit of a tug of war over them. I'm not going to make them out to be bigger than they are, but I do think they are a big school and a big chess piece that is clearly going to move at some point in the future. And this is why you get all of when the ACC collapses, or if the ACC collapses, is because it's not just Clemson. It's not just Florida State. Like you said, North Carolina wasn't as noisy and involved, but you best believe if you didn't think they weren't sitting back taking notes the entire time, then you're just absolutely oblivious to reality, because for them not to would have been fireable offenses. We all assume they're definitely sitting there taking notes. And the thing about this story is it's not proclaiming anything's happening soon, although 2030, 2031 is here sooner than you realize. But it does acknowledge that the buyouts decrease, especially starting in 2029 and 30, right as that's going to start coincide. That's when it'll finally dip under 100 million. And so for the next year, it's 165. Then it's 147. Then it's 129. Then it's 111. You get into 29 and 30 is when it drops below 100 million to 93. But then in 2030 and 31, that's when it drops down and it doesn't change, because from then on out, from 2029 through 2036, it's all the way down to 75 million. And you can see where that, along with the alignment of TV contracts and just everybody kind of pinpoint that time period, it's been talked about widely, but you can see why, that seems like it would be the no-brainer spot. But I guess the question is, could it happen sooner? Could they just say, we'll pay 93 rather than waiting another year just to save 22 million. That's entirely possible, but I don't see where there's the urgency. Certainly not this year, but I mean, 147 million next year. Maybe I don't know what their coffers hold, but yeah, this shouldn't come as a surprise that they are doing their due diligence. And quite frankly, when it comes to a story like this, although this does get a little bit more detailed, if you don't think every single school in the country this entire time has been having conversations, then you're oblivious. And I don't think you've probably followed realignment. So a lesson to be had, everybody's talking to everybody at all times, trying to find their best situation. So like sometimes when you see these reports of like, so-and-so is talking to, well, of course they are. It's just not supposed to maybe be public. But in this case, I do find it interesting that it's intentionally being made very public. And the timing of it with ACC Media Days as well. Carolina is stirring the pot. And I don't think it's any surprise that they are looking around. And for them, will be one of those schools that actually has a choice potentially to make. Now, maybe what would be surprising is you go, well, I thought they were going to the Big Ten, because that's what a lot of rumors would say. Well, I mean, they make a lot of sense in the SEC. Keeps you all contiguous right there. Takes up even more of the southeastern part of the United States. You got South Carolina right there below you. And they're a southern state, in my opinion. So, it keeps everything intact. And I can see where they would fit in quite well. So I think, they are a school that definitely has their sights set elsewhere, has had them, and is just, I guess it's more public now and yet not surprising at all.
North Carolina's a southern state. Yeah,
I know. I know North Carolinians, and I've talked to them about this, but I do see like online conversations. So just for the sake of like that random thing of like, no, technically, and it's like, no, it's a southern state.
Look, I'll just tell you, Piper, no, they were from North Carolina, the White Lotus. This is, and again, so that would make 17 teams in the SEC, and you got to think that they're always going to round things out.
Hello, Clemson.
Yeah, exactly. And then that puts the Big Ten conversation back in play for FSU,
Georgia Tech,
Miami, schools like that. Georgia Tech's got a bit of an issue in that it's not really that big of a school, same like Miami, but they're in big markets, but
a big market right in the heart of SEC country.
Yeah, exactly.
If not the SEC capital, I think maybe it was for a long time. Like I know there's a lot of Nashville now, but certain New Orleans, but certainly, Atlanta right there in the heart, if not the capital. That's where they that's where Media Days was.
I see that, like, because consolidation is going to happen. Like, it's just going to keep happening. I wish it wouldn't. I wish that they would, like, can we just stop here? Like, let's just stop here.
I would love to get to that point.
Just stop here, because the more it gets that way, the SEC is the only one who could really kind of contain itself and not be like a weird paint spill all over the map, because the Big Ten, ACC, and Big 12 are going to span all that. And then, those conferences will, those other two conferences will gobble up the scraps of what they want. And then we're probably going to find ourselves with 3 24-team leagues with 4 6-team pods in them, that rotate, or 3 8-team, I don't know, whatever it is, but 6-team pods that rotate around and, have an NFL type schedule model where,
you play your divisional opponents every year. That's where it needs to get back to. Yeah. It's like, I don't want to see the new NFL, and it's not going to be the NFL. I don't care how many people want to paint it as that. It's not the same thing, but yeah, I mean, eventually you force yourself into where now you're doing your Eastern Division. It's all the Carolinas, adjacent schools or whatever.
And then you have what they would do is like, okay, you're going to have your protected rivalries, and then for those random, for the other non-conference games, you're just going to rotate out like, hey, this year the SEC, South Division is playing the Big 12 West Division, kind of a thing like that, because that's the easiest way to cross that over, just like the NFL does with, like, this year you have the AFC South, and then next year you'll have the AFC North, and then you'll have the NFC East, and you'll have the AFC West, kind of things like that. I think that's where it's probably headed if this goes down. But again, in 2030, we have no idea where the money's going to be and where it's going to be bending in the national interest. So this could be much ado about nothing. But if things don't change that much, so if North Carolina really decides that they hate the conference that they also kind of run, that's the thing that boggles my mind about North Carolina and Clemson and Florida State. Like, look, you should get to the point where maybe you can renegotiate the TV deal. And if you guys start winning, like all of you, not just Clemson right now, if all of you start actually winning titles and getting, if any of this house settlement stuff brings back some sort of competitive balance and the ACC can, have more than just Clemson win or more than just Florida State win, or North Carolina can start pulling their weight in a sport that the ball doesn't bounce, then, maybe, just maybe, they'll pay more for your television deal on the back end, which is what the Big 12 is betting on, is that we're going to invest all that we can into this football league. And on the back end of this, in the next roundup in 2030 and 2031, which the ACC is kind of screwed there because, again, their deal runs to 36, we'll be better and everything will be better off because we've now made this cross the conference concerted effort, which is something that the ACC has had a problem with, even though they say they care more about football. It's only when things got bleak where they're like, well, if you really want to be in this next wave of things, you have to care as much as Florida State and Clemson care. You have to care that much, because if not, then it's going to fall apart, which some schools just don't have the financial wherewithal, even though they might have the emotional wherewithal to care.
Yeah, it's a story that's not surprising because, again, I'm just of the belief that everybody's talking to everybody, and a lot of that we don't even know about. So a lot of times you hear, well, so-and-so is interested. Of course they're interested. Of course they are. Again, we talk about the Big 12 a lot. We all acknowledge, no matter how prideful everybody wants to get, if Texas Tech got an SEC invite tomorrow, they are out the door before midnight. Same goes for every single other school in that league. Same goes for everybody in the Pac. Same goes for everybody in every league not named the Big 10 or the SEC, basically. So them being one of the ones, though, that's talking about moving, that's also not a surprise because they've long been mentioned in the grouping of schools that would be of interest and would have the resources and the geography and the history and everything else that would be enticing to those two leagues that would actually potentially be additive. Like, for example, North Carolina basketball would be a great thing for the SEC. Football, not so much. But basketball, you add it to what they've already now pumped into it and where that could be in the next few years. And, yeah, now all of a sudden you add UNC to that, and, like, bam. But that would also be equally appealing to the Big Ten. So I do think they're one of those that is certainly going to be of interest for both parties. And I think Florida State would be. And I think Miami, you're having conversations about. I don't see them so much in the SEC, but and who am I? Clemson, obviously, as well. So, yeah, I think the world is basically the SEC and Big Ten's oyster as far as picking off teams in the future years. And they're not going to ever hear no's, I wouldn't think, if they do open up the doors to opportunity. And so I think you're seeing schools having had been, but now especially just making it known that, yeah, we're gearing up and we're going to be ready to make a move, and we're having talks, and we're gonna create some noise about this, and we're gonna try and make something happen. And nobody's even hiding it anymore, because we all know, like, of course, that's what everybody would do if they were in the spot to be able to go and jump onto one of those leagues. So, yeah, this isn't surprising. I think just the timing of it is interesting because everything it's at a time in the sports calendar where it's like the deadest that it is right now. And this just whole kind of like few weeks period is the deadest that it will be all year long, but especially in light of ACC Media Days wrapping up. And now you throw this out there after Jim Phillips has been up there like preaching about,
hey, we got everything's calmed down now. We
settled the lawsuits. It's all good, baby. Like, we've been preaching about the long-term vision. And like, you just know, like the whole time, like, yeah, but
call Bob Bowlesby. He's experienced this, Jim. Just call Bob. He's a great guy.
Right.
He'll walk you through what you're about to go through. Whether anything happens or not, I think 20 or 24 team leagues are going to be stupid. It is stupid. It's almost stupid right now.
It feels very stupid in some instances for sure. When we're doing the scheduling discussions and we're getting into like the 7 teams that you don't play in your league each year, that already feels very stupid. But it's only going to grow. It's not going to minimize. And there is this unanswered question that has hung over realignment conversations for the past couple of years, and it's all revolving around the ACC.
Yeah.
And that's why yesterday we had this long conversation about just Andrew's poll question and just kind of throwing it out there. And that's why I was adamant yesterday of like, you don't need Oregon State, or you don't need Washington State, you don't need Tulane, you don't need anybody if you're the Big 12. You are looking east and you're saying, when does that fall apart and how do we take advantage of it?
Exactly.
And that's what you've been preparing yourself for. So when Brett Yormark sees this headline, he's not surprised. I mean, nobody, again, should be surprised that North Carolina is interested in leaving the ACC for the Big Ten or the SEC, or be surprised that they've had conversations or have been putting the wheels in motion. None of that should be surprising. Every school's doing that to the best of their ability. But, I think you're looking around and you're licking your chops going, it's not a matter of if but when. And I know there's ways that the ACC could still hold itself together, but it would most likely be, depending on the extent of the damage, the way the Big 12 held itself together, or the way the Pac held itself together, where by the end of it, it doesn't look quite the same as it ever did before. And so I think that it feels like all signs point to sometime in the next 5 years, we're going to finally get the ACC domino one way or the other. And the odds-on favorite bet is that, there's going to be some teams leaving for greener, literally, pastures, and North Carolina would be one of those in that grouping. It's just a matter of who else do you think that's in there, in your opinion or in your estimation, and who might be attractive to others. I think that's where the conversation starts to get into, well, what about NC State and what about Virginia Tech? And I think that's where the Big 12 comes into play. But, I think the ACC is the unaccounted for conference because the Pac's already been through it, and we saw what happened there. The Big 12's already been through it, and we saw what happened there. We've seen SEC and Big 10 just sit back and collect new programs and big money blue bloods. And so the only one that hasn't been touched so far really is in this stage, at least, is the ACC. And so it's inevitable that something's going to have to happen there at some point.
Absolutely. Now, Craig, you're going to be jealous of our next guest. I'm jealous of him because he's in a place that we would like to be right now, which is Oxnard, California. And Mickey Spagnola joins us now. Mickey.
Yes.
How you doing out there in lovely Cal? What's the balmy, is it 73, 75, 81? What do you got?
Well, let's check because it got a little chilly today, even though the sun was out. So my guess is right now it's probably 68. 69.
Okay. All right. 69 degrees in Oxnard, California. Mickey, the Cowboys have had their first couple of days of workouts and arriving, and the State of the Union address that Jerry gives every year, and everybody kind of freaks out about because he says Jerry things. And then when you ask the players, and I get, if you're in contract negotiations, if you're Trayvon Diggs, who, that had to probably sting a little bit, but I think most of them, when they're like, well, when you hear him say that, they're like, that's just the old man. That's Jerry doing Jerry things. If they got mad about it, they would never show up to work, I'm sure.
Well, as far as Diggs go, he's got a contract. That should not have been a surprise, and he didn't follow the contract. So it wasn't like they fined him. They just deducted it from his $9 million base salary. So, he said he was surprised. I guess he was surprised that they actually were going to do it. Probably didn't think that would happen. But, 500,000 is 500,000. And he acted like it was chump change. So I guess he didn't need it.
Yeah. So, Mickey, George Pickens, it was funny hearing, I heard Joe Hoyt had a quote from CeeDee Lamb about getting to know George Pickens. The risk factor on George Pickens is that he's an emotional young fella, right? He gets really fired up. He's had some maturity issues, But he has said, like, hey, if people get to really know me, I think they'll kind of understand where I'm coming from. And it seems like CeeDee Lamb has taken that step so far and that they're getting along pretty well.
No, I think they're getting along famously. As a matter of fact, to me, I think that the move to bring George Pickens to the Cowboys, I think, has changed the perception of what this offense is or what it can be. I mean, how many offenses out there have 2 number 1 receivers? And he's a number 1 receiver, and they seem to be coexisting awfully well, not only during the offseason, but so far here in these 3 non-padded practices that they've already have. It's amazing to watch this work. I thought Schottenheimer had a great quote. He said that if defenses are going to try to man George Pickens, he's open. So, and Dak's had a great connection with those 2 guys. And if there's a highlight to training camp so far, it's the ability to throw the football to your 2 top wide receivers.
Yeah, they. I'm very curious because of the way that they've tried to, develop a guy, and some of the ones they have. They kind of drafted a bunch of guys who were number 3 wide receivers at best and hope they took the next step. This is something different than they've had on the roster, probably since Amari Cooper left, right? Having 2 guys with the skill sets this level.
I would say so, but then think about it. When Amari was here, CD was just a rookie, right?
Yeah.
He hadn't really blossomed yet. And then the reason they let him go was because of CD, and they saw what he could be. But, Brandon Cooks was a good sidekick, but he, at this point in his career, he was no George Pickens. And there was a pass today, Dak threw a slant, and I guarantee you he threw the ball before Pickens put his foot in the ground to cut in, and it was a completion on the run. It was amazing to see, and this connection with those 2 guys is going to be a serious boost to this offense. And unlike last year, CD's been here. He's playing football in training camp for the first time since 2023. And even he admitted that he was oblivious to maybe what his holdout was creating, not being here in camp, and basically, as he said, tailoring what I need to do to what Dak Prescott wanted. So, when you talk about the running game, first and foremost, defenses are going to have to stop the passing game.
Yeah. Veteran offensive linemen can skip training camp for a few weeks and step in and maybe hit it faster. But that chemistry that has to develop between quarterback and receiver is through so much repetition. The offensive linemen have their own way of getting the reps. It's a different thing mentally and physically, as where it's like shooting free throws after practice, running routes and all those things. That's just a different skill set of the game that you lose when you're not there for a month. It's a month. So you're talking about thousands and thousands of routes that just you're not getting back until the next year.
And it's not just the reps you get in training camp. It's what you missed in the off season, in the OTAs and the mini camps, right?
Yeah.
And it took a while. He said CD pointed out that he didn't feel like they were hooked together, same page, until the San Francisco game. Mm-hmm. I'd have to look to see which game that actually was. 5, maybe 6 into the season.
Yeah.
There's a serious connection between those 3 guys going on right now. And, the pads don't come on until Sunday. So, what I say, you might want to kind of qualify it. But at least, if they were playing 7-on-7 football or flag football, they would be pretty dynamic.
Yeah. Mickey, the other interesting thing when it comes to wide receivers is that 3-4 situation. Kevontae Turpin, obviously, like they really have tried to figure out, like, can he be a guy who's regularly on the field as a wide receiver and not just in certain sets? They traded for Jonathan Mingo last year, who's a guy that they thought very highly of when he was getting drafted. And they still really like Jalen Tolbert. And Jalen Tolbert is a glue guy in the way that maybe they haven't had since Cedric Wilson left, that can maybe do a lot of things and has improved in each year. What do you expect to see out of that and how that shakes out over who's maybe the fit there for the third spot?
Yeah, I don't know that it's going to be a static third guy.
Yeah.
I think there'll be a rotation depending on what they're trying to accomplish. But so far, Shoddy's been a man of his word, trying to get Turpin more involved in the offense and not just handing him the ball on jet sweeps. They're throwing the ball, and he has an ability to show off his speed, and it's still there, believe me. And Tolbert, steady as he went, I think people forget, he led the team in touchdown receptions last year. Mingo, I've always had this idea when they were at practice, and remember, he didn't get there till
November, right?
At the trade deadline, right?
Yeah.
And it was like the passes that would go to him, the little bit he played, they were like almost. Well, they're no longer almost. They're completing passes to Mingo down the field. And getting the wide receivers, the running backs involved in the offense, getting Miles Sanders out in space, getting Jaden Blue out in space, that's pretty good. And I haven't even brought up the tight ends yet. And finally, Ferguson is healthy. He doesn't have anything slowing him down. Overshown is looking like he gets it now. And Brevin Spain Ford is really pushing to be that third tight end. So this could be a pretty prolific passing game if they can stay healthy.
You and I talked about it before, Mickey. Tight end is a very interesting position for the Cowboys long term because Ferguson's a free agent. Schoonmaker is now at the point where he's got to show what – they're not going to just kick him to the curb. He's got to show what he can do, or they're going to invest if Ferguson leaves in someone else. Right. And then they've got Brevin Spanford, who you said is doing really well. So I'm interested to see how that happens, especially with Ferguson in a contract year. That's very intriguing for what, again, he's playing for the contract, which usually turns out to be at least interesting statistically for these guys.
Yeah. And I know you're looking ahead.
Yeah.
They got to take care of today.
Exactly, right? But it is but there's urgent. There's a little urgency on that position.
Let me get Overshown doing because he might be my guy next year. I don't think they're looking at that way, and you can see what happens with Ferguson if you're able to keep him or you draft another guy because you need 3 tight ends, right? Yeah. And you can't pay all 3, that's for sure. But again, next year you're going to say, well, Ferguson's not here. Overshown's in the last year of his contract. So, it's just kind of a revolving door. I think they just worry about what's going on this year.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, but it is an interesting thing. When it comes to health of guys, Mickey, do you have a gauge on, when we might see full participation from Revel and Diggs and Micah?
I can tell you Sam Williams is ready to play football.
Oh, yeah, I've seen some
People
clips.
forget about him, right?
Oh, yeah.
And he's been very disruptive out there. I think Revel, just watching him rehab, it could very well be next week. He seems to be moving well.
Yeah.
But even if he gets out and they put the pads on, they're going to kind of regulate his snaps and not throw him into the deep end right away. Josh Butler, another guy they put on PUP and played a little bit last year before he tore his ACL, and that didn't happen until December, so he's probably still got a ways to go. And as for Diggs, they placed him on PUP, And again, they're going to have to ramp him up when he's ready to go. I don't know that he's ready to go next week. I get the feeling just talking to people that they feel like he would have been further along if he had rehabbed at the Star instead of on his own. And we know when guys do that and they pay somebody to rehab them, and I'll guarantee you this happens. On Monday morning, the player calls and tells the guy rehabbing him, I had a long weekend. I don't think I'm coming in today. Yeah. And the guy's not going to say, well, you better, because you're paying. He's getting paid, right?
Yeah.
But if he does that here with the team, he gets his butt chewed out. So not only
which makes you wonder why he didn't do it.
Yeah, and he knew that there was a de-escalating clause if he didn't, rehab with the team 84% of the time. So it's hard. I think it's hard for them to judge just exactly where he's at. Maybe they have a better idea when we get to Sunday or Monday.
Yeah, that's one of the things is like, look, you could do both, buddy. Like there's nobody telling you can't go rehab on your own. As a matter of fact, if you're going to do a little extra work, I'm sure the team is thrilled that you're that invested in it, that you're going to do that, but you still got to, adhere to the contract and kind of follow the thing. That's why it's so weird to me that they're like, it has to be one or the other. And you're like, no, you can do both. Like the team's not telling us. It didn't say 100% of the time. It said 84. So you've got 16% of your time where you can get this other second opinion on.
Maybe he liked the weather in Florida better. I don't know.
I get you. Who knows? Who knows, Mickey? Well, finally, Damarian Overshone. That sounds like November. Like he's targeting like maybe around Thanksgiving,
right?
To be back, which is. That's amazing news because given the injuries he's had in like back-to-back years, we could have been talking about like, is it ever? But if he feels good, that's really good news for the Cowboys and especially good for Damarian Overshone, who has the potential to be a star if he can stay healthy.
Well, I'll tell you what, he's working his hiney off. I see him doing his rehab. He's got a smile on his face. He's doing it as hard as he can. And then when they get into team, he's not just standing off to the side watching. He's right behind the defense. And Schottenheimer said the other day, he's getting to the point where they might let him relay the defensive call into the huddle because he wants to be engaged. They want to get him engaged. And he's just remarkable in every sense of the word. And if anybody can get back sooner, it will be him. But in his best interest, he's just got to make sure that, he does what he needs to do and let Mother Nature decide what the time is.
Sound like he got some of that, some Sean Lee into him a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you wish you could have 11 Sean Lees on your defense, right?
Yeah.
So he's the real deal.
Yeah, I interviewed him a few times, obviously, but one time I asked him, I said, look, if you had a sprained ankle, just one that you could come back from, and they let you put your pads on and just stand in the middle so you could see everything, would you do that? He's like, yes, absolutely. Just stay away from my ankle. Like watching from over here is annoying. He's like, I can't couldn't stand it. He couldn't stand it. So it's not like if Damarian Overshone has that in him, he's gonna make a name for himself.
Paul, we tried doing that when I was in college in intramurals. We had an off-campus soccer team, and we were ragtag, and no one knew how to play soccer. But you had to have a minimum of 7, 8, 9 guys on the field.
Yeah,
and we were down to the minimum, and a guy got hurt. And I told him, just go stand off to the side. You don't have to do anything. Be on the field, and we can continue playing. And finally, the assistant guy in charge of intramurals came over and goes, no, that's it. You guys are done. You can't play that off. So your idea in the NFL is probably not going to float.
No, I mean, he just said, like, yeah, I would. They're not going to let me, but I would. Yeah, he wants to be in it. Like they just want to be in it so much. It's fun to watch. Well, Mickey, enjoy the 60 degree weather that you're having. And we will talk to you next week, where it will be even hotter here than it was this week. So
I took my long sleeves off not to rub it in. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Mickey. Thank you so much. I think, by the way, we talked to Scott Purcell at Big 12 Media Days, and I think that the door might be open for us to come, maybe not this year, but next year, and get back there and deliver chili as God intended.
I'll give you the free pass.
All right. Thanks, Mickey. Talk to you soon. All right. That's Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. The top 5 is next.
Overwhelmed by your inbox? Clean Email is here to help. Organize, clean, and manage your emails with powerful automation tools. Say goodbye to spam and clutter and enjoy a stress-free inbox. Try Clean Email today at cleanemail.com. That's CLEAN email.com. Founded in 1910, Samsonite is the world leader in durable, high-quality luggage and travel accessories. Made to the highest standards, our products won't let you down. We give you the confidence to get out there and explore. Inspired by the past, devoted to the present, and built to inspire a multi-generational future, Samsonite is here to elevate your journey. Travel with Samsonite and pack confidence every step of the way. Shop now at shop.samsonite.com. Samsonite.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5.
Welcome into the Top 5. I'm Paul Catalina. It is my Top 5. It's also, you know what? It's Flag and Anthem's Top 5 because they're our sponsor. This fancy shirt, Flag and Anthem. Use our promo code at flagandanthem.com. 365 Sports. Today, teams nobody is talking enough about. And by nobody, I mean the college football populace at large. Number 5, the Pitt Panthers. Last year with Eli Holstein, they were undefeated. Without Eli Holstein, they were winless. So, defeated. I'm curious to see what this team can do with 10 or more games of Eli Holstein. Remember, he was one of the top quarterback recruits in the country, was committed to A&M, decommitted, went to Alabama, lost out on his shot there, transferred to Pitt. So he had the juice coming from high school. Just couldn't break through under Nick Saban at Alabama. Goes up to Pitt, and look what's happened. So if Eli Holstein plays this year, Pitt will be a tough out. Or when he plays this year, they'll be a tough out. His health is paramount to their success in the ACC this season. Number 6, Number 4, damn. You know what? Sometimes you get old. I'm just a little sidebar here. I'm sure you can see this big, gigantic rake thing on my nose. When you're younger and you have acne, you think like, when I'm older, I'm not going to have to deal with it. It's not true. Instead of having 20 zits, you just have one really big, painful one that pops up right before your television show. That's what happens. And I digress. It's messed with me all day. Number 4, TCU. Josh Hoover's one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12. I've got a sneaking suspicion they'll be better in the running game this year than they were last year. And I want to see year 2 of that Avalos defense. If all of that is better, TCU should be in contention in the Big 12 all year long. And I think it will be. And Josh Hoover in the offense will be good enough to keep them in pretty much every single game that they play. Number 3, as we're counting down, not up. We count down, not up on the top 5. But sometimes we make mistakes. Illinois. Luke Altmaier returns at quarterback. Their defense is very stout. Brett Bielema enters this season maybe more confident than he's been in a long time about his team, especially with all the returners they have. Now, do I think they're a Big Ten contender? Not yet. But they could get on the right side of the win column pretty quickly and get on a bit of a roll. So it would not surprise me to see them maybe overtake Indiana, although Indiana's schedule is super easy once again this year, and they might be right back where they were a year ago under Kurt Cignetti. But Illinois, someone to watch, because they were better last year than a lot of people give them credit for, and forget some of the big wins that they did have. Number 2, Duke. This is Darian Mensah. Duke is paying him $4 million. And this is what you call a football uniform. Duke, people are just now getting familiar with that. And Manny Diaz has got to be fired up that he's got a quarterback this talented that they're paying this much money to make some waves in the ACC. That league after Clemson is pretty wide open. I'll say this. I think Miami, you heard it earlier this week, I think Miami will be okay. I don't think they'll be great. I don't know if Carson Beck has that it factor that Cameron Ward does. I think Louisville will be fine. I think NC State could be interesting. I think Georgia Tech will be tough. I think Duke will be very tough. And I think Florida State will be better. So after Clemson, there's going to be a wide open shot for the number 2 spot in the league. And I forgot to mention SMU and Kevin Jennings, who I'm a big fan of. But Darian Mensah brings a special something to Duke that they have not had in quite a long time. Well, maybe ever. Riley Leonard may be the best quarterback in Duke history, and he's going to be remembered more for what he did in one season at Notre Dame than he did in his time at Duke. But Darian Mensah, really good player, and I think will elevate a Duke offense even higher than it was last year with Malik Murphy, who wasn't bad. And Manny Diaz's defense, year 2, and that was Mike Elko's guys, Manny Diaz's guys, and now that. They know how to play defense at Duke. I know. I'm as shocked as you. And number 1, Iowa State. I don't know if you guys remember this. It was a long time ago. It was in December of 2024. In December of 2024, Iowa State played for the Big 12 championship. They did not win that game. But since then, everybody's talking about a lot of other teams in the Big 12 who have not either played in it or have not played in it in a while. They just played in it a year ago. Their quarterback's back. Yeah, they lost some wide receivers, but they replaced those guys through the portal. I think that we are underselling what Iowa State could be with Rocco Beck this year. And Matt Campbell is probably thrilled with that. In fact, if he watches this, and I'm sure he does every single day, because what else does he have to do in Ames, Iowa? I kid because I love. But if Matt Campbell is watching this, he's like, yes, no one's talking about us. Keep it that way, dude. Like, just let us have this chip on our shoulder. Rocco Beck, one of the most fun quarterbacks in the country. Iowa State will be good up front on both sides of the ball. So why are we not talking about them as much as we are, say, other people in the league like Texas Tech? Well, obviously with Texas Tech, they have rolled out the checkbook in a way that has bowled over the nation. But, we're talking about Utah more than them. Utah wasn't in the championship game just a year ago. They were. Utah doesn't have a returning quarterback, even though Devin Dampier really looks exciting. They do. There's not been a whole lot of upheaval. In fact, they only took 8 transfers on the roster this year at Iowa State. That means they're pretty confident in the roster that they have and only went into the transfer portal for what they needed, not necessarily just what they wanted or thought they needed. They got their needs filled by 8 guys in the transfer portal. That's it. Iowa State is for real. In my opinion, again, I reserve the right to be proven wrong. And if I am, you can taunt me in the comments. I only read them 10% of the time anyway. Well, that's going to do it for the top 5. I'll be sitting over there in a minute reading polls. Look, here I am over here. I teleported. Didn't even have to walk. All right, poll number 1. Which sleeper is most likely to have a breakout 2025 season? 40% selected Carnell Tate, wide receiver at Ohio State. He steps into the number 2 role across from Jeremiah Smith. Tyler Brown, Jack Endress at Texas at 25%. Bo Walker and Tyler Brown pretty close to each other at 18 and 17%. I would have voted for Endress here over Carnell Tate just because I'm not totally sure. I think it's going to be Julian Sane at quarterback, and I think he'll be good. And I think Carnell Tate will have a fine season, but that offense that Sark's running, Craig, is very fruitful for the tight ends.
Yeah, I mean, Gunnar Helm's no longer there, so we got to have somebody help replace some of that action and some of those catches. But, I mean, the list, you could probably put 50 names on here, right? I mean, there's unlimited opportunities. I guess the only limitation is on just the number of players that don't have some type of recognition. But, yeah, there's hundreds of guys that I guess could apply for this. But there's kind of a grouping that you hear, especially in these preseasons, the preseason magazines and whatnot that have their sleeper choices. So, yeah, I think interested in a Sarkisian offense, I can see where you're going there for sure. But, all 4 of these guys, looking forward to just kind of seeing some fresh, new, not in every case, but just kind of the changing of the guard. It's going back to our eligibility conversation earlier. It's like part of the fun of college football is that you roll guys off eventually, even though you'd love, if you're LSU, to keep Jaden Daniels as your quarterback for the next 10 years. You also like Garrett Nussmeier, and it's cool that it's now his team, So I'm excited to see some sleepers, some breakouts, and some fresh faces.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 2, this one, Craig, I just based on the conversation we had in the break, I know which one you would have voted for, but this is what is the greatest Hulk Hogan moment ever. Number 1 by a long shot, Hulk slams Andre the Giant, WrestleMania 3 at 54%. Coming in second, Hulk Hogan joins the NWO in 1996 at 24 at 15%. And this is your favorite one, Craig, right?
No, not necessarily.
Hogan versus The Rock at WrestleMania 8. And bring up the rear as Hogan headlines the first WrestleMania.
Okay, so yeah, Hogan slamming Andre, very overwhelming favorite there. Did Andrew put together this poll?
Yes.
Andrew, incredibly well done, man. Like, I mean, honestly, I didn't know, because sometimes I just don't know. I was actually going to tell you, but I didn't want to be like insulting. First of all, you can come to us for any poll suggestions or feedback, but like, I wondered when I figured it was going to be a Hogan poll. I didn't know how, dude, you nailed it. Like, you absolutely freaking nailed that, man. Great job. The poll assassin, Andrew over there. But yeah, I mean, I see the 4th spot's the interesting one, but I think you went with the right one, because I would have said, not even going to lie, I pull up my notes here and I'll just make them bigger for Paul, but I had these 3 listed because I was curious about what Andrew is going to put. What does it say?
Wow. Slamming Andre, joining NWO, Hogan Rock, WrestleMania 8.
He nailed it. And I just didn't decide on the 4th, but WrestleMania 1, because of the impact that had, man. Yeah, you absolutely made the right choice there. He had a lot of career highlights, but yeah, I think that was the way to go, because here we are 40 plus years later, and WrestleMania is still like something you can say to nobody who watches it, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I've heard of that. So yeah, I think for me, I think Andre's the choice, man. But Hogan NWO was just like earth-shatteringly amazing and cool and mind-boggling at the time, and led to so much cool stuff, and was so surprising and unique, and was like just an amazing moment in wrestling, because it changed everything you thought you knew, with Hogan being a bad guy suddenly. And that was awesome.
The whiskers.
Yeah,
the black beard, like,
what do you call this? The stubble.
The
black stubble with the big bleach blonde handlebars, and the white shades with the black bandana and the lightning tights and all that good stuff. The white weight strap that he would slap on people sometimes, or slap people with sometimes. Now Cody Rhodes does that quite often, but I was telling y'all on the break about Hogan Rock, because I know y'all aren't necessarily wrestling fans, but if you watch the first, like, I mean, really, the whole match gets you sucked in, but like the first 5 minutes when the crowd in Toronto, which absolutely loved Hulk Hogan, says he's not going to be the bad guy tonight. We don't care what your plans are. He's the good guy tonight. And the way he and Rock have to react to it, but the crowd, maybe the best wrestling crowd ever for that match. Like, just watch from the end of the intros and the introduction and the bell ringing. And it's just amazing. It's magical. So that's a good one too. But I think I go Hogan slams Andre because that was such a pivotal moment early on. So I'm in agreement. And I think our audience probably skews a little older as well. So they'll remember that more. But Andrew, you nailed it, man. Well done. Well done there.
He's also got you an honorable mention.
Okay. Yeah, Rocky. Thunder Lips, baby.
Yeah. Yep. Look, and the Mr. T, obviously, also a big part of the early part of wrestling as well.
They co-host, he was his tag partner there in WrestleMania 1.
Yeah. And then Mr. T, obviously, is Clubber Lang in Rocky. Here's what I'm disappointed of in the Creed movies is they brought back everybody's kid but Clubber Lang's. I would have loved to see a Clubber Lang kid.
I liked the original Creed, the first in the series. I didn't watch any of the others. I haven't got around to them.
They're all really well done.
Yeah.
I mean, Michael B. Jordan, I think, directed the third one, but Ryan Coogler's a great director, so they're good. Yeah.
No reason as to why. I just haven't ever come across them and sat and watched them, but I really enjoyed the first one. Yeah.
Yeah. I was super excited for the second one because I love Drago,
Sure.
So Rocky IV is my favorite one of all the Rockies, and that, that'll never be. It's actually one of my favorite sports movies of all time, Rocky IV.
Don't think I've ever seen it.
Rocky IV?
No.
Really?
I don't think so.
Oh, wow.
Who's the bad guy in that?
Drago. That's Dolph Lundgren.
Well, yeah, I've seen that then.
Yeah. That's Drago. Yeah. So, if you stopped after that one.
I think that's what I was thinking of. I didn't get to Rocky V or whatever.
Rocky Balboa is good, but Rocky V doesn't exist in I don't think it's canon. I refuse to believe that. That's going to do it for the show. We are back tomorrow. Tyler Budge is going to join us, and Josh Neighbors is back. He is launching a new podcast under our umbrella. Would love to talk to Josh again. He'll be back tomorrow. Among others, this is 365 Sports.